Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. This is more of an slightly unscheduled episode. This was supposed to go live yesterday, but we are here. We are today on a Monday evening, going live. This is episode 356. I hope you're all doing great. So before I begin, I would like to apologize for what happened yesterday. I was supposed to go live yesterday, but the platform that I use, the live streaming platform that I use, StreamYard, it went down globally, and it's never happened before. I have done every single live stream, Ask Avijit live stream on StreamYard since day one. I have never been late in more than 350 episodes. I've never had a postponement, but yeah, there's always a first time for everything. So here we are. So apologies for those of you who were waiting yesterday. I really apologize, and hope it doesn't happen again. Some of you have been very kind enough to suggest that I should perhaps move to OBS. OBS Studio is a good live streaming platform. The issue with OBS is that you can live stream to one or two places at the same time. If you want to live stream to like 6, 7 places, like I do, see, right now I'm streaming to YouTube, to Twitter, to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, Kick, and so on. Live stream to multiple places. You need a very powerful machine, and for that you have to do a whole different setup and all that. So that's why you have live streaming services like StreamYard, and that's what makes it convenient. So I could use OBS as a fallback if something like this happens and stream only to YouTube, but won't be possible to stream to multiple places at the same time unless I really look into the setup. Anyhow, so here we are. Let's see who all is there on the live stream with us tonight. Let's see. Greg is here. Rano Nahapana is here. Rohan Bidi, good evening. Happy Monday. Rano Nahapana, hail Goddess Mahakali indeed. Tanmayi Danikar, new member. Thank you very much. Mary Kane, good morning, ma'am. Good to see you. The Eternal Witness, Har Har Mahadev Ji. Geopolitical Dubey from Indore, good evening, sir. Rekha Humle, Jai Shri Ram, ma'am. The Strummer, namaste and hello. Vinod Vaibhav, Ashwini Sharma, Shubh Sandhya. Vice Idiot, hello. Dev Joshi, good evening. Aryan Abdul Purkar, Nirvana Shanks, Ave, Om Naik from Sambalpur, namaskar. Mahendra Singh, Ayush Singh, good to see you, Ayush Singh. Good to see you always. Harjap Bhatia, good evening. The weather is doing great. Hensi Penguin, hello, good to see you. Dhruv Durya, Shrey SV, Shreyas V, guten Abend. Somi is here from Jaipur, I expect. Good to see you, Somi. Yes, from Jaipur. Itchi 4155, Aman Tiwari, hello, sir. Animals for Laugh is here from Mumbai. Good to see you. Shreyas Mitra is here from Moscow. Good afternoon, Shreyas Mitra from Moscow. Nirvana Shanks is into three chapters into the gates of Rome, Emperor number 1, making progress slowly. Rome is making history, mostly making time. And interesting, good. Is that Con Eagleton? Or is it I think it's Con Eagleton, yeah. Good writer, yes. Good historical fiction. It's not necessarily accurate, but good reading, yes. Rahul Dunake, namaste ji. Aman Kumar Dankar, hello. SP Arush X, hello. Imperial Bharat, Tanmay Deshpande. Lage raho online, Har Har Mahadev, brother, indeed. Adarva Pradeep, hello. Rohit 1233. Shivam, Animals for Laugh, Shivam once again. Who else? Shreyas once again. Sutikshna, hello. Gaurav G, hi. Himanshu Raj Purohit from Chennai, good to see you. Satyam Chaudhary, hello. Satyam Chaudhary. Vithrik Martinez, hello. Reanimation 2943, hello, sir. Arnav Chaurasia, namaste. Banter Gamer is here from Kick, I think, or Twitch. Okay. Imperial Bharat, once again. Ankita Kachap, good evening, ma'am. Hello. Logically losing. Okay. Niket Singh, Tanmay Deshpande, once again. Gaurav G, Gurudatt Marathe, good evening. Aditya Yadav, hello. Aham Brahmasmi is here from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Namaste, bonjour, bon matin. Who else? Okay. Unknown Dar, hello. ¿Cómo estás, Vitrik Martinez? ¿Cómo estás? Bien, I suppose. Bien, yeah. Not very fluent in Espanol, but all right. Gaurav G is here from Nashik, and so many other people. Okay. So let us get going with the questions. Chess VEN is here. Sugant BVKS is here. Mir Bharat once again, and so many other people. Okay, so let's get going with some questions. Hopefully, I can take the questions you all had asked yesterday as well. What do we have? In case some of the questions have disappeared, well, I apologize for that, but it was not in my hands what happened yesterday. So let's get going with some questions, and I'll take as many as possible today. Let's have some fun. Krishav says, "Is Turkey's Bayraktar Kizilelma a game changer in military drones as it becomes the world's first jet-powered unmanned fighter jet capable of independent air-to-air combat and carrier operations?" Bayraktar. So the founders of Bayraktar are a father and son duo. The son in the 2000s, okay, like about 20 years ago, was pursuing a PhD, I believe, in the United States. And he abandoned the PhD, returned home to join forces with his father, who had this company, mechanical engineering or whatever company. And this guy was doing a PhD in drone engineering, I believe. I've seen one or two of his papers, yeah, or maybe a thesis or whatever. So they got back together and they set up this company called Bayraktar. That's kind of the origins of the company, and they are doing tremendous progress in these unmanned platforms. And one of the best ones they have is the Bayraktar Kizilelma. So Kizilelma, I believe it means the red apple. If I'm not mistaken, in Turkish it means the red apple, and the red apple in Turkish is it's a term that's used for Constantinople, which is now called Istanbul. So Sultan Salim, or whatever he was, Fateh, right? He's the guy who conquered Constantinople from the Byzantines, right? And that was the great prize he was after. He was a young man in his very early 20s, around 20 years old. And the great prize was the red apple, Constantinople. And he's the guy who conquered Constantinople for the Turks. And that's how the Byzantine Empire was crushed and erased, and it was replaced with the Ottoman Empire. So that is Kizilelma, Constantinople, the red apple. And so this drone is named after that. And it is a jet-powered unmanned fighter jet, right? It's capable of air-to-air combat. It's capable of landing and taking off from aircraft carriers. Is it completely autonomous? Probably not. It may be remote controlled. I have not looked into that, whichever way it is, right? Maybe it's semi-autonomous or whatever. But I would say, at least in theory, on paper, it sounds like a tremendously capable platform for any nation to have, right? So Turkey is doing great when it comes to aviation, military aviation, whether it is the standard human-driven fighter jets or these autonomous unmanned or semi-autonomous unmanned vehicles. Overall, they're doing great in this. You got to commend a good job someone is doing, right? Turkey is not India's best friend. They are Pakistan's best friend, as so to say. But yeah, they're doing great work in this. Is it a game changer? Well, I don't know if it's a game changer. On theory, in practice, on paper, it sounds like a game changer, right? Because see, there's no risk to human life involved in unmanned operations, right? So as long as it's not too expensive, you can afford to lose a few of these and still get your, achieve your military objectives. So overall, from that perspective, it's great. But it's never been battle tested, combat tested thus far. So I can't say if it's a game changer or not from that perspective. It is. It looks great on paper. It looks great in theory. Maybe it's great in practice as well. But it's not been battle tested. It's not been combat tested. But that should not mean that you take it lightly, you become complacent, and you say it's not good enough. No, it doesn't mean that. Maybe it's a great system. Maybe it's just waiting for its first taste of military operations and combat operations. So it's potentially a game changer. But until it's actually proven in battle, you can't really tell. That's what I can offer you about this matter. Okay. Sachdev Satyajit says, is the Grabby alien hypothesis a potential solution to the Fermi paradox? Where in our solar system do you think we are likely to find alien life? Right, Grabby alien hypothesis in the Fermi paradox. So first of all, what is this Fermi paradox? So Fermi paradox is a simple question, essentially. If you want to boil it down to the basics, the question is, Where is everyone? Are we out all alone out here in the universe? Does intelligent life exist only on Earth? Why, if the universe is so vast, like 10 raised to 22 or 23, 10 raised to 23 stars in the observable universe, roughly, okay? And let's say each star has at least one planet, okay? Then you have 10 raised to 23. That's one with 23 zeros after it. Those many planets in the universe. That's not even astronomical. It's mind-boggling numbers. So the chances are that there should be plenty of reasonably intelligent non-human life spread, dispersed, scattered across the universe. So it makes sense there should be intelligent alien life all across the place, all across the universe, in various galaxies and so on. So if that is the case, why don't we see any signs of intelligence anywhere? Where is everyone? That's the question. That's the Fermi paradox, right? And you can kind of guesstimate how many intelligent civilizations could exist, let's say, on a specific galaxy like ours, based on the Drake equation. Obviously, the Drake equation has got a bunch of variables in it, and those have to be guesstimated. You don't exactly know the actual numbers in some of those cases. So it's kind of hit or miss, but you can kind of guesstimate how many civilizations, alien civilizations, that could be in, let's say, the Milky Way. And depending on what you fill into the thing, there could be one or maybe 1,000. Yeah, what variables, what numbers you plug into the equation. So that's a Drake equation, and that's the Fermi paradox. Now the Grabby alien hypothesis. What is that? The Grabby alien hypothesis says that there could be two kinds of intelligent civilizations like ours. Okay, one could be the one that is scared and it wants to hide itself. Dark forest theory. The forest is dark and scary, and we want to keep a low profile and stay hidden so that no other more intelligent civilization detects our existence and comes to destroy us. So you keep a low profile. That's the quiet aliens, the quiet civilizations, low profile civilizations. And the other category of civilizations is the loud ones, the ones who have made tremendous progress already, and they are loud. They don't bother to stay hidden. They make as much noise as they want, and they expand rapidly. So once you reach a certain technological threshold, you can expand rapidly, potentially. For example, right now we are in the midst right now in 2026 of the AI revolution, right? Chat GPT, all these things, they became a thing the last 3-4 years only, right? They became commercially available only in the last 3-4 years. The initial versions were very basic, but now look at how things are. You can't afford to take AI lightly. The next 5-10 years, you could have complete revolutionization of science, technology, progress, everything based on AI. So that's, it's a game changer. It's an accelerant, a tremendous accelerant of progress. So similarly, there could be other technologies that will make you accelerate your progress and development in space exploration, in expansion out of your home planet, and so on, right? So if a civilization has reached that threshold, they can potentially expand very rapidly and grab up space. Let's say in the next 50 years, we develop technologies that allow us to rapidly expand beyond our little planet, the Earth, and we rapidly colonize, let's say, the solar system, and then start venturing beyond. And let's say in the next 1,000 years, we grab the next 50 closest star systems, and then we say next galaxy. So if we are if we have made those that sort of advances, we will not bother to stay quiet. We'll be loud. We will advertise. We will not bother to hide ourselves. We'll just expand. So that's the loud aliens, the grabby aliens who grab everything. And once such a civilization starts grabbing everything, they will ensure no other life forms there, if they exist, will be allowed to come up to their level. They'll keep them down. That makes sense even geopolitically in Earth level geopolitics. So that's the grabby aliens, right? So is this a potential solution to the Fermi paradox? Well, if grabby aliens exist, and if they're loud and expanding and they don't bother to stay hidden, why haven't we seen them? So does it mean, so we haven't seen anyone, right? We haven't seen any sign of life. So does it mean this grabby alien hypothesis is incorrect? It doesn't necessarily mean that. maybe it means we are too early in the evolution of our universe. We are only 13.8 billion years old, right? A star like the sun, how long does it last? How long does it exist as a star? Maybe, let's say, 5 to 10 billion years. So we are very early in the life cycle of stars and in the history of the universe. Maybe we are very early. Maybe that's why we haven't. Maybe it's so early in the life cycle of the universe, and that's why we haven't found any Grabby aliens yet, because they still haven't reached that stage. Maybe we will be one of the Grabby aliens. So it could be a potential solution to the Fermi paradox, and maybe it says that we are very early in the life of the universe, and the first Grabby alien civilizations will now start emerging in the next 100, 200 million years. Maybe we will be one of those. That is what this indicates. Okay, Grabby alien hypothesis. I hope that throws some light on this issue. All right. Tanmay Danekar is a new member. Well, thank you very much, Tanmay ji. And I welcome you to this channel's membership. It's very kind of you. Thank you. Mary Kane, good morning, madam. Good morning. Good morning. The question from Mary is, clay Millennium Prize math problems unsolved for 27 years, and each of these has a prize money of $1 million each, right? Some examples are the Navier-Stokes existence in smoothness and fluid dynamics, which is part of fluid dynamics, which belongs to the domain of fluid dynamics. You have Yang-Mills existence and gap, which is part of the domain of quantum field theory. The question is, why are these problems unsolved for so long, right? And I've spoken, that's a great question, first of all. And I've spoken about this at length on so many different occasions over the course of the Ask Abhijit show, over the various episodes. So one thing that's happened is that theoretical physics, has clearly hit a brick wall sometime in 1980-81, around that time. After that, there's been no major new theory that's come out that's made testable predictions and given rise to genuine progress in physics. We have discovered gravitational waves in 2015, right? First time ever. But that theory was proposed in 1915 by Albert Einstein. So that's an old theory that was finally validated in 2015. And later on, the Large Hadron Collider, this massive particle smasher that is in Geneva, Switzerland, outside of Geneva, Switzerland, that particle smasher finally gave us a new major discovery, which was the Higgs boson. We finally discovered it. But the Higgs boson was proposed in the 1950s by Peter Higgs. He got the Nobel Prize in his very elderly age. So these are all old theories that have been validated recently. But no new theory has come up recently, right? Which has made testable predictions that we can actually properly test and either prove or disprove. Why is that? And then that's why you have the Millennium Prize problems. And these problems too are unsolved for a very long time, 27 years plus, right? 27 years. You had some of them were solved, like the Riemann hypothesis and so on, which is mathematics. But Navier-Stokes, existence and smoothness, fluid dynamics. So what is this problem? So the Navier-Stokes equations, they deal with fluid mechanics, fluid dynamics. Let's say you have a fluid that's flowing. Maybe it's a river. Maybe it's water in a pipe. Maybe it's blood in your veins. Maybe it's gas. Gas is also a fluid, right? So when fluids flow, and you can use the Navier-Stokes equations to predict the future behavior of these fluids. Okay, so let's say you have an initial state of a fluid, it's flowing smoothly through a certain cross section of a tube, let's say, and you know the initial conditions. Then using the Navier-Stokes equations, you can predict what's going to happen in the next instant, the next instant after that, the next instant after that, and you can kind of model the behavior of the fluid in the next few instants, in the next few seconds, next few minutes, or whatever, right? But the Navier-Stokes equations are incredibly difficult to solve. Yeah, you can't solve them mathematically. You have to solve them numerically or using supercomputer simulations and so on. Very, very tough equations to solve. They're very complicated. You can solve them in 2 dimensions, but in 3 dimensions, they're devilishly hard to solve. So mathematicians have been able to show that in 2 dimensions, the Navier-Stokes equations remain smooth. The Navier-Stokes equations produce smooth solutions for the foreseeable future. Extended, if you can extend it for thousands of seconds, maybe thousands of years, right? They never blow up. What do we mean by blowing up of equations? When an equation blows up, what it means is that it produces an infinity, a singularity, which is a disaster, right? So the question is, is it possible, can the Navier-Stokes equations give us solutions that are smooth, continuous, etc., and non-blowing up in 3 dimensions? Essentially, that's what it is. And we don't have the answer to that right now. So that's why it's a big unsolved problem for 27 years. The Young-Mills existence and gap, which is part of quantum field theory. Let me explain that briefly. What is that? We have the Maxwell equations for electromagnetism, right? Maxwell's equations. I suppose you learned that in high school or whatever. But they're not that simple. But still, the Maxwell equations, they are a solution to, they describe electromagnetism. Okay, and the quantum of electromagnetism is the photon. The photon. Now, the Young-Mills theory is a more generalized, advanced version, you could say, of the Maxwell equations. It describes gluons, it describes the strong nuclear force, and so on and so forth. It describes the standard model. Okay, and the question is, what's the lightest particle it can produce? Okay, so when you don't quantize the fields, you have, the fields are the fields propagate at the speed of light, which means that their quanta, the particles, the force carrying particles, force mediating particles, are massless. But we know that the universe has mass because of the Higgs mechanism and so on. So what's the lightest particle that can be produced? And there's a mass gap involved in that. What's the, that sort of thing. So that's the Young-Mills existence and gap problem, which comes under the domain of quantum field theory. And these are extremely complicated theories, whether it's the Navier-Stokes equations, these are super complicated. With the Young-Mills theory, that's super complicated. So why is none of this, why are these still outstanding problems? Why haven't they been solved? That's a great question. See, the last revolution in physics started around 1900, when Max Planck finally discovered the quantum, right? Planck's constant H and so on. And that was the birth of quantum mechanics. So initially, when we started making these discoveries, the theories were pretty simple, pretty basic. Initially, they were all disjointed. Eventually, we were able to, make a unified sense of all of that. And the more we did research and more insights we developed, the more complicated the theories became, the more mathematical they became. If you, for example, see the papers that were published in the 1920s, whether it is Louis de Broglie with his wave particle duality and so on. If you see the papers today, if you have some basic understanding of physics, a high school or college level understanding of physics, you'll be able to understand those papers, the derivations and so on. But if you see the papers that are published today on the archive, you need to be really good at math and you need to have advanced knowledge of physics to be able to make any sense of those research papers that are being published today. So today, the solutions, the problems are way more complicated. We've understood everything that's simple to understand and reasonably difficult to understand. Now now we are probing the frontiers of physics, and a lot of our energy, effort, time has been spent investigating physics from the perspective of string theory, and that's not producing any results. So now we need to recalibrate and maybe look at other ways of approaching these problems. So that's kind of the reason why so many of these problems are unsolved for so long, because they are very complicated. Some of these things, if you want to, for example, Young-Mills theory, if you want to probe experimentally these theories, you need extremely energetic colliders, which means we need to build more and more powerful super colliders and so on, which costs tremendous amounts of money. I mean, the Large Hadron Collider, the most powerful particle accelerator we have, that consumes enough electricity to power a small nation for 1 year. So the amount of electricity the Large Hadron Collider consumes in 1 year, it can be used to power a small country for 1 year, right? And now it's not enough for us. We need a larger collider because the LHC has reached the limits of what it can do. So now there's a proposal for a super LHC, which will cost way more money to build and it will consume way more electricity than the LHC does. So we are venturing into realms where these things become financially, economically unfeasible. They don't make a lot of sense. So that's where physics is right now. Physics is waiting for a new revolution of some kind. That's why these problems are unsolved. Okay. The Strummer says, why are we tolerating Manipur infiltration? It's a good question. The other question I could ask is, why are we tolerating the presence of tens of millions of illegal Bangladeshi, Rohingya, Pakistani infiltrators in the country? I don't know about Pakistanis. I mean, during Operation Sindoor, we caught like tens of thousands of them. Right? They were living in India for decades, some of them. And when Operation Sindoor happened, the government was able to identify and apprehend them very rapidly, which means we essentially knew they were there, but we were doing nothing about that. Why were we tolerating the presence of these Pakistanis, illegal Pakistanis in India all this time? Why are we today tolerating the presence of tens of millions of illegal Bangladeshi infiltrators who are visibly present in India? These are big issues. And then the corresponding question is, similarly, the Rohingyas. We know where they are. They're all illegals. They did not come India after applying for visas. They just walked into India somehow. They are illegal. Their presence in India is illegal. And similarly, Manipur. So it's not just one issue. It's an approach that is completely flawed. Why are we tolerating all these things? Right? Why? I don't know. That's the question I would also like to know. Why is this the case? Why are we tolerating so many illegals in the country? Tens of millions. Manipur is a disaster. And the presence of tens of millions of Bangladeshis in India, illegal Bangladeshis in India, is also a disaster. And Rohingyas and potentially Pakistanis if they have not been all evicted. Why? Why? I don't know why. I don't have the answer. I would also like to know why, but I don't know. Yeah. So it's glad that all of you are now becoming more aware of these problems, right? That's a good first step for us. Once everyone's aware of this and once everyone raises the voice, maybe some change will happen, perhaps, hopefully. Abhay Singh says, I'm sad. Tinde bane hai ghar mein. What's a tinde? What's a tinde? What is tinde? Tinde is plurals. Tinda, tinde. I don't know what it means. Tinde bane hai ghar mein. I'm sorry, I don't know what do you mean by that, but don't be sad. Solve the problem. Solve the problem. Don't be sad. Teen Talks says, why we don't have historiography like the Greeks had Herodotus, Thucydides, and Plutarch, but we have heaps of religious texts surviving for thousands of years? Okay, good question. Good question. So, we have heaps of religious texts that have survived for thousands of years. But our historiography is missing. And that's why the world likes to say, especially the West likes to say about us, that you Indians, you Hindus don't have any sense of history. You never bothered to write history. You just relied on memorizing things and passing things down as word of mouth. You never bothered to write your history. That's why we, the West, will write your history. You people have no sense of history. You're an ahistorical, backward, primitive people. You don't deserve to be called a civilization. All you have is religion, religion, religion. What about history, you bloody idiots? That's what the West says. And that's the question that Teen Talks is raising, which is a valid question. What happened? Why don't we have historiography? Detailed, written accounts of our history. Why don't we have that? Let me tell you why. 1,000 years ago, our universities were destroyed. We had universities across the length and the breadth of India. These universities are known to have been destroyed. The universities were destroyed and the libraries were burned. Nalanda is said to have burned for several months. The library at Nalanda is said to have burned over several months. If you go there today, I haven't been there personally. I'm told you can still see the scorch marks on the walls of the ruins. So if a library burned for several months, can you imagine how much knowledge was destroyed? So it probably is the case that we had extremely large we had copious amounts, most likely, of detailed written history of our civilization, of the subcontinent, in these libraries, in these universities that were all across the length and the breadth of India. Nalanda, Takshashila, Tilhara, Udantapuri, Vikramashila, Sharda Peeth, Vallabhi, and so many more, so many more. These were all systematically destroyed. The invaders, they would first go to the universities, the libraries, they would extract whatever they found of value, which is mathematics, astronomy, pharmacology, toxicology, science, physics, all the stuff that they found of value, they would take it out, and then the rest would be destroyed. Which is why we don't have any surviving detailed records, written records of our history. Then the question is, if that's the case, we had written history, but it was destroyed. Then why do we have heaps of religious texts surviving for thousands of years? Right? That's also a good question. So maybe, most likely, the universities had detailed records of everything, of all the different disciplines: history, mathematics, astronomy, pharmacology, toxicology, Ayurveda, all of that, Natya Shastra, every single discipline, and everything was destroyed. So even the even the religious texts, the philosophical texts, the spiritual texts, everything would have been destroyed in the destruction of the libraries and universities. But our education system was not a top-down system, it was a bottom-up system. So the religious texts would survive in the hundreds of thousands of temples we have across the country. But the historical texts probably were in the libraries, in the colleges, like the viharas and all, which were all destroyed. Which is why we have surviving religious texts. Even those are not completely fully surviving. Some of these may also be destroyed, may have been destroyed permanently. But because we have so many mathas, we have so many temples in different parts of India, that's why the religious texts survived. That's most likely what happened. Hitman says, Pranam, have you watched Stargate TV show? It's a science fiction show, and I don't think I've watched it. No, I don't think I've done that. I've watched it. I've heard it's pretty good, Stargate. Right? But I haven't watched it, unfortunately. Rano Nahapana says, possible outcomes of civil war instead of partition. Civil war, which civil war? Are you talking about a past civil war or future civil war? In the past, you could say that, in the 1940s, we were perhaps on the verge of a civil war, right? I think Muhammad Ali Jinnah had threatened the civil war if a partition was not given to him. And that was the pretext that was used by our leaders and by the British to partition India. And even after when the partition happened, there was horrible genocide. The violence of the partition. A few million people died, and it is said that both sides participated in violence, which is nonsense. Only one side participated in violence. So let's say we refused, let's say, in 1947 to have a partition. Let's say we refused. Then what would have Jinnah done? He would have tried to unleash direct action day kinds of riots all across the country, wherever he had any influence. Maybe he would have tried that. Yeah. Well, so be it. Deal with it. We should have dealt with it. And then the whole thing would have been over right there in the next few weeks or months. Possible outcomes, the likely outcome would have been that India today would be far more united with far higher standards than what we have today. And there would be a unified subcontinent as opposed to a fragmented subcontinent, which is now used by more powerful nations to encircle and contain India. That would be the most likely outcome of this civil war, which would last for a while. Wouldn't be a long-lasting thing. So the question was, the question our so-called leaders had at the time was partition or civil war. What did they choose? They chose partition. They said no civil war, partition. They went for partition. About 100 years before that, in the 1850s, Abraham Lincoln had the same choice: partition or civil war. He chose civil war. And the history of the world was, well, it's whatever history the world has seen after that, after the 1850s, is a consequence of that choice made by Abraham Lincoln. He chose civil war over partition. And that choice has led to the United States being the most powerful empire in human history. Right? So, food for thought. Ankit Kumar says, so your podcast about Operation Sindoor on Avara Musafir. My only question, what and how are we doing to counter US China, who are on a mission to contain India? Our rise is necessary for humanity. Right. Uh, so let's make, first of all, the basics. The United States has a containment policy now towards India. It's no longer cooperating, collaborating with India in various things. It's now seeking to contain India, and it's doing a great job of it. It has effected regime changes all across the subcontinent in our periphery, whether it is West Pakistan 2022, the ouster of Imran Khan and the installment of Shehbaz Sharif undemocratically. That's one. The second one is East Pakistan. They turned Bangladesh into East Pakistan in 2024 with the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. Right. Then you have recently Nepal. Right. So India is being contained. And the Chinese and the Americans are adversaries in everything, but they agree only on one thing, that India should be contained. India must be contained. So they are on, like you correctly say, they are on a mission to contain India, and they're actively executing this containment policy. So the question is, what are we doing about this, and what can we do about this, and how can we do whatever is to be done about this? And you're saying that our rise is necessary for humanity. I would agree with you. I would agree that a strong, rising, growing India is necessary for humanity. India is a force for good. India has never been a hegemonic, rapacious, colonizing, predatory nation or civilization. Never, ever. Right? So a strong, powerful, growing, rising India is overall great for humanity. So what are we doing about this is the question. Right now, we are facing problems. We have the artificial disaster created by Israel and the US in the Strait of Hormuz. That's affecting us pretty badly, right? I mean, the government is doing a pretty good job of negotiating this problem, but it does affect us, right? And it's going to affect us the next year or so, at least. So what are we doing to counter this? See, you can't really go head to head with the US or even with China at this point. What you do is accept the reality that you are being contained and work very hard internally. So what can you do internally? You can work on your infrastructure, you can work on your economy, and externally you can work on becoming a third pole in global geopolitics. One pole is the US, the other pole is Russia, China. Russia is actually our friend, so China, but you can be a third pole. If India can rise enough, grow enough, and become militarily self-sufficient enough, we can be a third pole. And I think we are working towards that. The last week or two, we have tested multiple new weapons. We have tested an intercontinental ballistic missile. We have tested scramjet engine, I think. Right? We are testing all kinds of different weapons. We are trying to be as self-sufficient in terms of defense equipment, manufacturing, etc., as soon as possible. We're working very hard on that. And once that starts happening, it can also have a positive effect on our economy. And geopolitically, we are trying to be friends with as many nations as possible, work together along mutually beneficial lines with as many nations as possible. Obviously, it's not easy, but you do it. So overall, I think the government of India is doing all the right things, right? A lot needs to be done more. I mean, some of our biggest vulnerabilities are our critical dependence on China for rare earth minerals, our critical dependence on other nations for energy, in terms of oil and gas. These things need to be addressed. There's no short-term solution for this. There has to be a long-term solution for this. We'll have to look into that. The AI race, which we are not participating in right now, but once we become a major manufacturer of microchips, semiconductors, all that, we will become a player in that as well. So we are doing the right things, but it's going to take us time. a decade or so to maybe to maybe be in a much better position. In the meanwhile, the next 5 years, it's going to be a very, very tough time for India. There's going to be tremendous pressure on us from the US, especially, to become a vassal state. And a lot will depend on how you people vote in 2029. A lot will depend on that. And a lot will depend on the fortitude of the government of India right now. So we are doing what we can. Right? The main thing is we have to all work together. We have to all understand that, we have a mission. Whether the mission is defined by the prime minister or not is a different story. But we all have a mission. We have to take our civilization forward and contribute in whatever way we individually can. Right? So let's do that. All right. Okay, Tanmay Deshpande says, 800-year-old mandir got demolished by the INC. Okay, I'm not aware of that, but that sounds terrible. If an 800-year-old mandir was demolished by whoever, I'm not aware of this. I don't know where it has happened or not, but overall, if that happened, it's terrible. Terrible. Yeah. Terrible. It's terrible. Piyush Sinha says, Namaste. Yes, I recognize you. Of course, you asked questions in the previous live stream as well. So yes, you want to ask, first of all, is if Israel is powerful enough to lobby the US into attacking Iran, then why does it not tell the US to attack the oil infrastructure of Iran? Because it is the greed of Donald Trump for oil that's extending the conflict. And since Iran has attacked the oil infrastructure of other Gulf states, so their oil structure also becomes a legitimate target. So you're asking if Israel is powerful enough to influence US behavior and operations, why don't they tell the US to attack Iran's oil infrastructure? And you say that, and then you say, okay, that Iran has attacked the oil infrastructure of other Gulf states, so their oil structures become a legitimate target. Okay. So first of all, let's understand what is legitimate, what's not. Iran attacked some of the oil infrastructure of other Gulf states, yes. But why did they do it? Did they start the war? They did not start the war. Iran is defending itself, and if its oil infrastructure is attacked, which it has already been attacked, then it's going to retaliate by attacking the oil infrastructure of nations in the Gulf region that are allied with the US. It did not start attacking, it did not initiate the attacks on the oil infrastructure of the Gulf states. The US and Israel first attacked Iran's oil infrastructure, and in response to that, Iran attacked the oil infrastructure of Gulf nations that are aligned with the US, which is all of them. Okay? So the first attack on oil infrastructure was done by the US and Israel. I mean, there was this massive cloud over Tehran when the oil depots near Tehran were blown up and destroyed by the Americans or Israelis. It doesn't matter who it was, one of those two. Then Iran responded. So I think it's a legitimate response, right? I'm not saying it's right, wrong. There's no right or wrong in geopolitics. The point is, if somebody hits me, I'm going to hit back, right? I'll not just sit and let it happen. So I would not say that this makes Iran's oil infrastructure a legitimate target. But in war, there's no right, wrong, good, bad. Whoever wins, there's victory and defeat in war. Okay, and Iran is ensuring it doesn't get defeated. I think it has the right to survive. It has the right to exist, right? Iran, just like Israel has the right to exist. By the way, let's also not forget that Israel also has the right to exist, just like Iran has the right to exist. But Iran has said that Israel should not exist, and which is why Israel says that Iran should be destroyed. So that's how it is. The only question is who wins, who loses, who survives, and who doesn't survive. That's the only question. So why doesn't Israel, like you say, tell the US to attack Iran's oil infrastructure? Because the US covets Iran's oil infrastructure and Iran's oil resources. If you destroy Iran's oil infrastructure, then if you do a regime change in Iran, you will have to rebuild all of that. And if you destroy Iran's oil infrastructure, it's going to affect the entire world, including your allies. So that's why in a war, let's say you want to defeat a nation, it makes sense to defeat the nation with as little damage to the nation as possible, especially if the nation has things that are valuable. The worst kind of victory is where you inherit is where you gain something that is completely ruined. The best kind of victory is when you conquer a nation intact without any damage. That's the best kind of victory. Okay, but who knows, if the war resumes or continues, they may even try to destroy potentially Iran's oil infrastructure. And why do they not do it? Why are they not doing it? So why doesn't Israel tell US destroy all of Iran's oil infrastructure? Why are they not saying it? Because Iran has possibly hundreds of thousands of drones and tens of thousands of ballistic missiles still in reserve. If the Israelis and Americans attack Iran's oil infrastructure and start destroying it, Iran will destroy every single oil infrastructure installation in the entire Gulf region. It will be permanently destroyed for years at least. Not permanently, but for years it will not be functional. So Iran still has the ability to destroy everything. Iran will even attack Israel's nuclear installations in that case. Dimona will be gone. So they are not doing it for multiple reasons. Primarily because Iran has a tremendous amount of firepower and offensive capabilities still left in reserve. They are still scared of Iran. That's the primary reason. All right. Okay, Chirag Srinath says, reports claim India secretly helped Taiwan build its first submarine with engineering know-how. Is this a response to China arming Pakistan? I haven't seen such reports. Let me try and see if we can discover such reports. Let's see. Did India secretly help Taiwan build a submarine? Let's see. Yes, as of April 2026, reports indicate that India quietly provided technical expertise and specialized components for Taiwan's first indigenous Haikun class IDS submarine program. This discreet collaboration involved retired Indian Navy personnel and specialized structural components to help Taiwan strengthen its defense capabilities. What kind of support was provided? India's support included assistance with structural components, subsystem manufacturing, and advisory roles based on Indian expertise with Kilo class and Kalavari class submarines. This assistance was part of a discreet, unconventional effort to circumvent the lack of formal diplomatic relations, using commercial agreements instead. The collaboration aims to boost indigenous submarine manufacturing in Taiwan while allowing India to deepen security ties with Taiwan amid regional tensions. This partnership highlights a strengthening of informal military technical ties between India and Taiwan, focusing on mutual interests in countering common strategic pressures, which is obviously China. So where has this news come from is the question. Are these high quality sources? I mean, it's quoting an Instagram account. It's quoting something called myind.net. I'm not sure. Defense Times. That's Facebook. It's quoting Facebook. So looks like such and then there are YouTube channels saying that India teaches a big lesson to China, muh tod jawab. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Instagram, myInd, Facebook. So I'm not sure. I'm not saying that this is necessarily incorrect information. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm saying we need to be careful about what we believe. If Facebook, if there are posts on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube is videos, that is not necessarily reliable information. But of course, if India is doing this secretly, it will not be published officially, right? So it looks like there is a possibility that India secretly helped Taiwan build its first submarine with engineering and other know-how, another assistance. So if this is true, if this is actually a fact that we have done this, is this a response to China arming Pakistan? It's a response to China it's a response to China's adversarial behavior and approach and attitude towards India. Not just China arming Pakistan, not just China providing assistance to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor, but overall China's approach and attitude towards India, a hostile, adversarial approach and attitude. Galwan, Daulat Beg Oldi, and so on and so forth. All of that, the past 70 years of history, China has been an adversary. We did not seek an adversarial relationship with China. China has imposed that on us. So it makes sense for us to help China's enemies. Why not? If this is true, I will say that I am pleased with it, that India did this and India is still doing it. We should. Of course we should. Good. All right. Harshay says, if we ignore the funny and tacky part and adopt a matrilocal system where the husband moves into the wife's home, would it destroy the social structure after several generations? I don't know. I've never thought about it. Funny and tacky part. I don't know what that is. Matrilocal system where the husband moves into the wife's home. What's the advantage of doing this, and what's the reason some whole civilization will adopt such an approach? I don't know. So the first question is, why would you do that? Why would you change the way of life you've had for thousands of years? India is not a matrilocal society. India is a patriarchal society. Today, patriarchal is a horrible word. It means evil, backward, all that. The entire Indo-European universe is patriarchal. China is patriarchal. Russia is patriarchal. China is not Indo-European, of course. But China is a different civilization. It's patriarchal. Historically, it's been that way. Why change things? Oh, we need to be more liberal, blah blah blah. I don't necessarily agree with that. So will it destroy social structure after several generations? Most likely, it will destroy your civilizational foundations within a few generations. Most likely, it will. Yeah, it will destroy your the edifice of a very large component of a civilization. Why do that? Godliness says, we allowed Western universities to open their centers in India, then 100% FDI in health and pharma. Now we are hosting their data centers and increasing the purchase of American petroleum. Aren't we pleasing the United States? That's a very good question. Aren't we pleasing the United States? Yes. Yes. So India changes very slowly. India is very slow to change. The past 20 years, we have acted under the assumption that we must get closer to the US. India and the US have shared values, apparently, and aligning ourselves more and more with the US is going to be good for us. That's been the assumption the past 20 years. And the Americans have actually cooperated with us in a variety of ways. But now, very rapidly, the Americans have changed their approach completely, and it's now a containment approach. But we are still operating under the inertial assumption that the inertia of the old framework. So in India, things change very slowly. If the Americans are containing us in all kinds of ways, we should recalibrate our approach along multiple dimensions and axes, shouldn't we? If you allow Western universities to open their centers in India, well, maybe that's not entirely a bad thing. Allow them to teach science, technology, all those courses, but no humanities BS. Right? They shouldn't be allowed to teach humanities courses in India. We don't need that nonsense. Teach us science, technology, engineering, all of that stuff. Those courses should be allowed in India. But I don't think that's the case. I think that their main focus is going to be humanities, to bring their values into India and to corrupt the minds of Indian kids. So I'm not sure why that is being allowed. What I would say is, don't allow Western universities at all in India. Take the best textbooks, translate them into Indian languages, and teach that in India. Have high quality education system in India itself. Why do we need foreign education? I don't get it, right? Reform the Indian education system and to hell with the Western universities. That's what I would say. But no. 100% FDI in health and pharma. So you're doubling down on turning healthcare into an industry, when healthcare in a civilization, in a civilized society, should be free. Tax the people and give them all universal free healthcare, like Iran does, for example. Now, in India, healthcare has to be an industry, which means they will extract every gram of value out of every patient. That's terrible. Terrible. I disagree with this. Hosting data centers for others. We should host our data centers. If you host a data center in India, it means you have to generate the electricity that powers the data centers. You need to supply water to the data centers to cool them down. And the data centers don't produce new jobs. They just run autonomously, right? Data centers. You need some jobs, but it's not a job generating, employment generating a sector. So that again, I don't know how. Maybe the rationale perhaps is that, if American data centers and Western data centers are in India, then they will be less likely to hurt our interests, at least to some extent. Maybe that's the rationale. I don't know. We don't want to completely decouple from the West, which then makes us a bigger target. Perhaps that's the rationale. So maybe we allow Western universities, we allow FDI and everything, we host data centers, then we are fully integrated with the West, which makes it less likely for the West to want to destroy us. Perhaps that is the thinking. I don't know. Maybe it's the case. Maybe there is an element of sense in it. Perhaps. Increasing the purchase of US petroleum. Well, right now they have closed the Strait of Hormuz. Maybe we should double down on Russian petroleum. But once again, maybe to please the Americans or whatever, we are purchasing more American petroleum. So overall, yes, we are pleasing the US. Overall, we are pleasing the US. Yeah. The Eternal Witness says, I'm sad. YouTube membership gifting prices have doubled. Unable to support the channel, which I love so much, to the same extent as I did in the past. I'll have to find a solution to this. YouTube membership prices, gifting prices have doubled. Okay, is it a change in YouTube? Is it a change across YouTube? What is? I'm not sure. But that's okay. That's okay. I will have to look into an extra platform approach to some extent, and I'll have to look into this. But don't be sad. Your viewership is enough, actually. You don't have to actually do anything to support the channel. But I very much appreciate anything you do, of course. It all helps. It all helps. But yeah, this whole membership thing and all, I will have to revisit this. And I'm in the process of revisiting and taking a fresh look at these things. Maybe some changes are coming in the coming days. Yeah. Piyush Sinha says, Sar, see the news of Israel operating a secret military base in Iraq, in the desert. Not even the defense minister of Iraq knew about this. How is it possible? Well, you see, Iraq is mostly desert. We haven't opened the map yet. It's almost 60 minutes, not quite. Let's open the map quickly before 60 minutes are up. Here is map. Yes, let's see. So Iraq is a desert nation. Iraq is west of Iran, and it's got this thin strip of land which is somewhat fertile, which is called Mesopotamia, the region between two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. The rest of Iraq is desert. It's just desert. Look here, all desert. You can see there are some water channels which sometimes will flow when there is rainfall or whatever, which doesn't happen these days. So Iraq is mostly desert, and the government, which of course is a weak government, it's not a sovereign nation as such, like it used to be under Saddam Hussein. When Saddam Hussein ruled Iraq, Iraq was a sovereign nation. At that time, this sort of thing would not have happened. Various parts of Iraq are not even under the control of the government of Iraq right now. And you still have American military presence in various parts of Iraq. So it's not surprising that something was happening in Iraq, in the desert, that the government of Iraq was not aware of. So the Israelis were operating, the news, I've seen this news. The Israelis were operating a secret military base within Iraq. And they used that military base in 2025 last year during their 12 or whatever day war against Iran. Right? So how is it possible? It's possible because Iraq has got a weak government that's been put in place with the express approval of the United States, and the US and Iraq is no longer geopolitically relevant. The Americans have destroyed that. So Iraq is essentially used as a staging region for the American and Israeli military action against Iran. And Iran, therefore, it also plays the same game. There's a significant Shia population in Iraq, which supports Iran. So Iraq has become a geopolitical playground of other nations. During Saddam Hussein's time, it was no one's playground. It was fully sovereign. I mean, significantly sovereign, you could say. And now it's no longer the case. Yeah. Okay, Magnificent Shri Nehruji is here. Good to see you, Magnificent Shri Nehruji. The question is, I or we avoid learning our Indian languages after moving to different states which are connected to Sanskrit, but willingly learn English without problem. And why is this the case? Well, there are multiple reasons for this. Let's say you take the effort to learn a new Indian language that you that you don't know so far. Let's say you are from, for example, Karnataka, and you move to Uttarakhand, and let's say you take the time over several months to learn the local language. Will it help you? Very practical question. Will it help you generate more income? Will it help you gain a new job, a better job? It will help you none of these things. It won't help you in any way. But if you learn English well, you will get a good job. Right? So there is no incentive for Indians to integrate ourselves better with ourselves, with our own people. There is no incentive for Indians to learn Indian languages. You get nothing in return for the effort. Right? That's the problem. That's why we are a nation divided. Because we have adopted English, this foreign language, as the prestige language and the language that will open doors and opportunities for us. And we have relegated our own languages to second class, third class status. Right? We don't willingly learn English without problem. We learn English because it opens doors for us within India itself. It is a mentally colonized attitude. India is fully mentally colonized. India is still colonized. This is the slave mindset. The entire system makes it mandatory to have a slave mindset. You have to learn English if you want to do well in India. From a career perspective, from an income perspective, from any perspective. If you speak English well, you are respected. If you don't speak English well, people look down upon you. That's the problem in India. And that's why nobody takes the effort to learn other Indian languages. You rather learn English. No matter where you go in India, if you speak English, people will mostly understand you and you'll get things done. That is the problem. And that's why I keep saying the system has to change. The change is to come through the education system and through a proper decolonization initiative, which will last a couple of decades, perhaps. Yeah. But no initiative. Nothing is being done to change anything, unfortunately. Rohit says, did you watch Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev? Was it fair or not? What did you think? What do you think? I haven't watched it. I only know about the outcome, which was a surprise that Sean Strickland was able to defeat Khamzat Chimaev, the first ever professional defeat for Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev is this guy from Dagestan, Chechnya, wherever it is, in the Caucasus region, right? Russian citizenship, Caucasus ethnicity, and he is based in the UAE. Khamzat Chimaev. He's called Bors, which means wolf or something. And he's never lost a professional fight as far as I know, and this was his first loss ever. He's been super dominant in all his previous fights, except for that fight against Burns, where he got really beaten up, but he still won somehow. I would have given it to Burns, actually, that fight. Gilbert Burns, the Brazilian. But I did not watch this fight against Strickland, which apparently was a split decision. But good for Sean Strickland. Good guy. Dev Joshi says, I am from Maharashtra, but BJP's Bengal win feels personal and a small victory in the civilizational table. I myself am pleased about this. And some people are saying that, I say, so first of all, I agree with you and I share the sentiment. Now, some people commented after the last live stream that you're a hypocrite, Abhijit. You're a hypocrite. You keep saying that you don't talk about Indian politics, local, regional politics. Then why are you speaking about Bengal? Right? Aren't you being hypocritical? You say that you have a rule, you never discuss Indian politics. But now you're saying that you're happy with the Bengal election results. So understand this. I speak about issues that are directly connected to the national interest. I never spoke about Manipur before the disaster began. Now I speak about Manipur whenever somebody asks me the question. I've even gone to other podcasts and spoken about Manipur. Manipur, you could say, is local politics. It's not. It is a national security issue. It's a civilizational issue. Why is it a civilizational issue? Because India's indigenous culture in the region is under threat. Indigenous culture, indigenous civilization, indigenous people in the region are under threat. So it's a civilizational issue. And it's a national security issue because of the presence and infiltration of lakhs of foreigners into Manipur. Similarly, Bengal is a civilizational issue and a national security issue, both. So when it comes to these things, I will speak. Okay? There are no hard and fast rules. I typically don't speak about elections in politics. What's going on in which state and who's going to win and all. I don't talk about these things. I talk about civilizational issues and national security issues. And these things I will speak. So I am very pleased about the result of the election. Fast Snail says, once India starts deporting illegal Bangladeshis, I'm sure so-called human rights organizations within and outside India, including the UN, will oppose. How to tackle? How to tackle is you put national interests above everything else. Okay? If human rights organizations, NGOs, UN, or whoever, US, if they are opposing and protesting, ignore them and do what's important. Do what's important for India's national security and national interest. That's it. Ignore them. Do what's needed for the country's long-term interests. That's all. How to tackle? Ignore them and keep deporting and deport them all. And then let's see. Yeah. Godliness says, apologize to ask this personal question, but aren't you doing injustice to your intelligence by living in India? Don't you think in the West or in the US you could have used your intelligence much better? Am I doing injustice to my intelligence by living in India? I don't think so. I'm sure if I had chosen to stay in the West, live in the West, I would have had much better living standards, none of the frustrations that you face in India. Maybe I could have done, been more productive or whatever. But I don't think I think I have chosen a path and it's going to take me in the right direction. It's not going to stop me. See, if I'm in India or if I'm in the West, I can still do these live streams. Being in India is not stopping me from doing that. If I want to write, let's say, 10 books over the next 5 years, it's not going to stop me. Being in India is not going to stop me from doing that. If I want to publish, re-enter the field of active theoretical physics research and publish, let's say, 10 papers in the next 5 years, being in India is not going to stop me from doing that. And being in India is not hurting or harming my intelligence or any such thing. The only thing is that if you live in India, you don't get the same lifestyle you have in the West. Yeah, you have to deal with all kinds of frustrations and other constraints and all. But you're in India, your homeland. So I don't think I'm doing injustice to whatever. I think it's the right path and choice for me. It's a conscious choice and decision. Okay. Okay. Tanmay Danekar says, is the US controlled by Israel? Well, That's a good question, and maybe it is. I mean, recent events seem to indicate that the Israelis kind of, to some extent at least, control the US and its actions. For example, the recent war, the third Gulf War, or the US-Israeli war against Iran. See, Iran didn't start it, right? The Israelis and Americans started it. But how did the war actually start is the real question. So a couple of days, 2-3 days, 3-4 days after the war began, the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio was having an interaction with the media, the local American media, or whoever, media over there. And he said, this is what he said, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially this is what he meant, that we knew, as in the US knew, that Israel was planning a military strike on Iran. And we knew that if this happened, then Iran would not only strike back at Israel, they would also strike back at American assets in the region. That's why we went ahead and struck Iran first. So essentially, Marco Rubio admitted that Israel dragged the US into this war against Iran. And if you take that evidence into the context of the question you're asking, well, clearly, Israel made the US go to war against Iran, or start the war against Iran. So to some extent, it looks like American actions, at least in this one case, were controlled by Israel. Yeah, that's one actual hard piece of evidence we have from the mouth of Mr. Marco Rubio himself, the US Secretary of State. The next day, he tried to make a U-turn or whatever, but we have his statement on the record from the first day. So, yeah. So it looks like Israel has a significant amount of influence on the United States. Okay, Amisha, good to see you, Amisha ji. No gold, no foreign trip, work from home. That's what the Prime Minister of India said, Mr. Modi, a couple of days ago. That's 2-3 days ago, whenever. In the last 2-3 days, he made a speech in which he kind of said this, right? Don't purchase gold for the next year or so. Try and not to go on foreign trips, foreign visits the next year or so. And the next year or so, if possible, as far as possible, work from home. That's what the Prime Minister of India said. So what does this indicate? That's a great question Amisha ji is asking, right? Why? And then there are some people who are saying that the Prime Minister of India is still doing foreign trips. The Prime Minister of India is still traveling across India, but he wants us not to travel. He wants us to stay at home. What kind of hypocrisy is this? That's what some people are saying. What is the truth? What is the deal? And where do I stand on this? First of all, where do I stand on this? I completely support and agree. I completely agree with what the Prime Minister is saying. I completely agree with him. Now, let's understand why. Okay? The world is currently facing a crisis, an energy crisis. At least 20% of the world's energy flows out of the Strait of Hormuz, which the Americans, and the Israelis, through their actions, have blocked. They can say that we are only blockading Iranian vessels and so on, but overall, the effect of their actions is that this energy that was flowing out of the Strait of Hormuz, it is essentially either completely blocked or it is slowed down to an absolute trickle. So at least 20% of the world's energy supply has been shut down. India depends on not just petroleum, but also for natural gas on the Gulf. That comes from the Gulf, okay? And there is a shortage now. And there are restaurants in India that are no longer operating, at least for the time being. We are already seeing the effects of this. Now, India, and some people have been saying that India is on the verge of running out of its strategic oil reserves, maybe 5 to 10 days left of strategic oil reserves. That's what some people are claiming. That is a lie. India has strategic oil reserves of about 50 to 60 days at least in store. We still have that much. And India has ensured that at least 60 days more of new oil is being imported right now. So India is not on the verge of any major crisis, but the world is in crisis and energy is right now in short supply. which is why it makes sense to take the precautions now instead of taking precautions when everything is, when we have hit full crisis. It's better to make the right choices now, to conserve whatever petroleum we are using and conserve as much as we can. Petroleum, oil, gas, whatever, energy overall. So I agree with it. Now, why gold? Gold. See, we are now spending more of our foreign exchange reserves to buy oil. And if Indians keep purchasing gold, which we have to import from other countries, then we're going to end up spending that foreign exchange on gold, which will deplete slowly, gradually, our reserves of foreign exchange. And we don't want that to happen. That's why it makes sense for the next year or so, don't buy gold if possible. Don't go on foreign trips, which will once again deplete our resources, foreign exchange resources, reserves, right? And if you work from home, then you will not burn that much petroleum. That much will be conserved per person. So overall, it's good. So India is not on the verge of a crisis tomorrow morning or something. India is still doing very well. The government is doing the best it can. It's doing a good job of managing this situation. But the world is in crisis. And many nations are going to start seeing a real crisis very soon. India is doing a great job of preventing that. But we still have to take the precautions. And that's why the Prime Minister has made the speech and said that this needs to be done. But now, does it mean the Prime Minister should sit at home in Delhi and not go anywhere? No. The Prime Minister's job is to run the country, lead the country, go wherever is needed as usual. The Prime Minister is not us. The Prime Minister is the elected Prime Minister of India. He will do what he has to do. He will travel. He will travel across the country wherever needed. He will travel to other countries if needed. You can't hold him to the same standards as the ordinary citizen of India. We are all a team. We play different roles. Okay. Now, some of you may agree, not agree with the Prime Minister and the BJP or whatever. That's a different story. That's personal political choices. But right now, we are in this situation and we have to support the government and the Prime Minister. Even if you don't agree with him or you have different political inclinations, that's a different story. When there's a war, when there's a crisis, or when there's a situation like this, we have to all stick together. So I completely support what the Prime Minister of India has said. All right? But there is no need to panic. The situation isn't great. The world is facing an energy crisis, so to say. We are doing a good job of managing it, but we have to make some changes and adjustments in the way we live for the time being, maybe for a year or so. That will, make it easier to manage the situation. That's all. Vinod Vaibhav says, India had huge influence of KGB from 70 to 89, diluting culture, religion, and household. Then rival agency took to promote liberal woke ICM ridiculing Dharma. These folks were very nasty, dividing India unseen. That's one of two. Is there a two of two somewhere? And then you say, politicians don't understand no matter which party I feel might intel or military know. We going down day by day. 1 billion pray to God for destruction of adversary and others. We know which country is doing. So India had a huge influence of KGB from 70 to 89, diluting culture, religion, and household. The KGB definitely would have a role to play in India from 70 to 89. I am not sure about whether they were diluting culture, religion, and household, but they certainly were allegedly keeping many politicians, perhaps, allegedly in their pockets, allegedly. Okay? That much is true. I don't know if they were trying to dilute India's culture, religion, and household and all that, but they certainly were allegedly keeping politicians on their payroll, allegedly. That we know. And that's their job. Wherever they have influence, they'll play the game. Every powerful nation plays that game. Then rival agency, like you say, it started. See, once the KGB, once the USSR was dismantled, and the Indian politicians allegedly were looking for new daddies, hmm, then a rival agency took over, started promoting liberalism, wokeism, ridiculing dharma. That is very true, and it's been very, very insidious and very, very effective. Very nasty. They are dividing India unseen. Sub national diplomacy they play. They pour in billions of dollars per year to convert people to foreign religions on an industrial scale, religious and demographic re-engineering efforts, with billions of dollars poured into India for these efforts. Yes, this rival agency you're talking about. We all know who this rival agency is, right? And this agency has thousands of different tentacles, and thousands of different tools that it uses, including NGOs and so much more. And they have plenty of assets active allegedly in India today. Right? Very nasty and so on. Yeah. So yes, I overall agree with you. And then politicians don't understand, no matter which party. Maybe they understand. Maybe allegedly they understand. I don't know. I feel intelligence and military might know. I think everyone may know. We're going down day by day. 1 billion pray to God for destruction of adversary and others. We know which countries are doing that. Yes. I don't think India's politicians are stupid. I don't think it's the case that they don't understand. But perhaps they put, some of them allegedly perhaps put their bank account balance over the civilizational interest, perhaps allegedly. Yeah? Perhaps. Some of them. I'm sure, not all of them. Some. Yeah, so that is the case, yes. And that's the issues we are facing. Okay. Safi Rahal says, why do Indian famous YouTubers act so stupid and worship the foreign YouTubers when they visit India? Why don't we act more reserved instead of worshipping them? Well, I think you should ask this question to those of famous Indian YouTubers. I don't know why. See, I don't watch other YouTube channels. I don't have the time to do that. I have too many things to do. My own things I do. I work on that, all that. So I don't watch other YouTube channels. I don't even watch other podcasts. Before I started this channel, I was a big fan of podcasts like Joe Rogan and so on. I used to watch podcasts from time to time. These days, I don't have the time to do that. So I don't know what others are doing. I can perhaps possibly imagine which Indian YouTubers, perhaps you're referring to, maybe not. And they act stupid and they worship foreign YouTubers when they visit India. So perhaps most likely it's because of the inferiority complex that is inbuilt into the Indian mindset and psyche. Inferiority complex, mental colonization. Oh, white sir, you are here, you are superior to us, we will worship you, that sort of thing. But I'm glad many Indians can see this and they don't like it, like you, right? So I don't know why it's the case. Most likely the mental colonization and inferiority complex, and that's not the best way to behave, I would say, right? Yeah, but maybe you should ask them these questions. Maybe let's see what answers they come up with, if they even answer the question. Okay. Harsh Sharma, roll number 1971, says, view on Japan wireless electricity satellite launch. I'm not aware of this, but let's find out. Has Japan launched a wireless electricity satellite? That'll be fantastic. Let's see. Let's find out. Has Japan launched a wireless electricity satellite? As of early 2026, Japan has successfully tested wireless space-to-Earth power transmission and is launching its dedicated Ohisama satellite project to beam solar power from space to ground stations using microwaves. The project aims to test 1 kilowatt of power transmission from a satellite 400 kilometers above the Earth. The Ohisama project, 2026. Japan's Ohisama satellite is scheduled for operation in 2026, converting solar energy into microwaves in orbit and transmitting it to antenna stations in Suwa, Japan. By late 25, early 26, Japan already achieved key milestones in wirelessly transmitting space generated solar power in tests. The ultimate goal is to establish a 1 gigawatt space based solar array within 25 years. This technology seeks to provide 24 by 7 clean energy unaffected by weather or night cycles. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, Japan is one of the most technologically advanced societies on the planet. They are way ahead of most other countries. And I think this is a great initiative that they've launched. And I wish them the greatest of success. And maybe nations like India can learn something from this and follow suit. So 1 gigawatt of clean space-based energy in the next 25 years, irrespective of day and night, weather, whatever. I think it's fantastic. Yeah. So I think it's great. What are my views? My views are that this is great, fantastic, great initiative, and I wish them the greatest of success. And maybe India should learn something, a thing or two from this, and maybe try and replicate what the Japanese are doing. Yeah. Okay. Sunil Naik says, why did our establishment not bargain anything while accepting ceasefire with Pakistan during Operation Sindoor? So there are multiple schools of thought when it comes to answering the question of why did India agree to a ceasefire after three days or whatever it was, 3.5 days of the conflict. One school of thought says that the de-escalation was built into the plan, that India only had limited objectives. We wanted to send a message to Pakistan and the world. We wanted to destroy a number of Pakistani terrorist bases and demonstrate our overwhelming military superiority over Pakistan. And once those objectives were achieved, the whole thing was programmed to end. So we had no intention of progressively going up the escalation ladder and having a conflict that doesn't end. So that's one school of thought. The other school of thought is that we should have at least taken some territory. Maybe the Hajipir Pass. At least taken some territory from the Pakistanis. The third school of thought is that we should have balkanized Pakistan and all that. Yeah. We definitely, what did we achieve? We were able to call the bluff on the Pakistani nuclear blackmail. We were able to establish our red lines. We were able to establish that we can hate Pakistan within Punjab, within its Punjabi heartland at will, and elicit no nuclear blackmail from Pakistan. We were able to demonstrate that we could hit 11 Pakistani air bases in 30 minutes at will. We were able to demonstrate we could, hit the radars and make them helpless and so on and so forth, all of that stuff. So if we had such an overwhelming advantage after 3 days, why didn't we do more is the question. Right. And there are multiple schools of thought to the answer. One school of thought is that, like I said, it was inbuilt. The ceasefire, the end of the conflict was baked into the plan, and that's why we ended it when the Pakistanis waved the white flag and begged for a ceasefire because we are helpless. Yeah, because they were helpless. That's one possibility. The other possibility, which I believe in, is that Donald Trump came in the way and arm twisted India into stopping the war. That's what I believe actually happened. We can officially say whatever that we had only limited objectives and so on. But I personally believe that we were arm twisted into ending the war by Donald Trump, by the Americans. And how does somebody arm twist you? By making threats. We will obliterate your economy. We will impose 3 million% tariffs. We will make it impossible for you to do business with the world. We will cut you off from the international financial system. These are devastating threats, and the Americans can actually make this happen on demand. And that's why when the Americans came in the way, we had to stop. That's what I believe actually happened. So when this sort of situation happens, when the Americans make this kind of threat, what will you bargain? Right? There's no bargaining. It's a maximalist threat they're making. We will destroy your economy. We will cut you off from the rest of the world financially. Then do you bargain when you're faced with that, with a nation that can actually make it happen? If you want to bargain, if you want to negotiate, you need to have some leverage. What leverage did you have? So that's why. That's what I believe happened. There are people who will disagree with me, which is fine. But that's what I believe happened. I also say once again, I don't have any evidence to back up what I am saying. Let's be very clear about that. I don't have any evidence to back it up. But I have a brain. I also say that Pakistan's nuclear weapons are not Pakistani. They are American nuclear weapons on Pakistani territory. I also say that. Once again, I don't have any evidence to back me up, to corroborate what I am saying. But I have a brain. Okay. Okay. NVM says, how are you? I'm fine. I hope you're doing great. Heavy reliance of PhDs for research and race for funding and paper publishing, excess focus on string theory. Are these factors the reason for lack of good research in physics for a while? Yes. See, if you are in academia, if you are in physics as a professional physicist, it means that you are either in a lab somewhere, either in private industry, in the private sector, or you're with a government lab, or you're a professor or researcher in a university. Let's say you want to be a professional physicist, so you go through a PhD and all that. So if you want to get a PhD, you have to publish a certain number of papers every year. If you're doing a PhD, it takes you 5 years. Well, after the first year or so, you need to publish papers. Publish or perish. At least 2 or 3 papers per year. So by the time you get your PhD, you should have at least 10 or so papers roughly. Otherwise, you won't get a PhD. You won't get the degree. You haven't published sufficient original research. And of course, you need to have a high quality thesis that you should be able to defend. So, and even after you get a PhD, and you get a job, maybe you get a job as a postdoctorate fellow, or as a junior researcher, or maybe as a tenure track professor or whatever. No matter what it is, you have to keep publishing. It's publish or perish. Quantity matters, volume matters, not quality. So if you look at the physics archive today, what's the physics archive? Let's find out together, shall we? arxiv.org. Here we go. Okay. Let's say you go here. This is the preprint archive. Theoretical physics. It's not just physics, it's mathematics, computer science, and physics. Okay. Let's search for me, shall we? Let's search for me. Here we have what? Here we have it. You can see some of my work here. But the point is, if you go to the physics archive, and let's say you see new astrophysics papers, you will see that new submissions 52 today. 52 new submissions today. A lot of research is coming out. What about quantum gravity? Let's see. Whoops. Let's go further. Quantum physics. Where is gravitation? One second. Chemical physics, classical, space physics, not popular physics, accelerator physics, mathematical physics, high energy physics, quantum. Okay, GRQC. Yeah, that's my field, GRQC. So let's go here. 10 submissions today. There's all kinds of papers being published all the time. You can see so many. These are all fresh papers that were submitted today or in the last couple of days. But how is all this publication work, all these tons of papers that have been published, how are they taking physics forward? Are we gaining something from all this? I'm not sure. We are still stuck in physics. The big problems are unsolved. There's this publish or perish attitude, which doesn't take physics forward at all. It creates this tremendous volume of published papers, and it's impossible to find something in all this giant haystack that actually takes physics forward, that takes our understanding of the universe forward in a substantive direction, in a substantive manner. Yeah. So it's publish or perish. The incredible volume of research that's been published, but not pushing the needle forward, right? So yeah. So these are the issues in physics today. There's so much research that's being done, but it's not taking physics forward at all. That's the issue, and so much, like you say, this excessive focus on string theory. That's kept physics, stuck where it is for too long. So yeah, these are the reasons why we have hit a brick wall in physics, a hard wall, and we're not going forward. Badman says, how bad is China's economy currently? I don't know how bad it is. Is it bad? The Western media keeps saying it's bad. It's bad. China is collapsing. China's economy is about to collapse. China's housing market is a big bubble. It's going to collapse. China's debt crisis is terrible. They've been saying that for the past 10, 15 years. What's happened? China's doing fine. I don't think China's economy is in a bad shape. I think China's government is overall doing a great job of managing their economy. So I don't think that China's economy is in a bad shape. China's economic growth may not be what it used to be in the 2000s, when China was growing at 10, 12% per year GDP. Maybe it's 3, 4, 5% now, but that's still brilliant if you are such a large economy. If you are an $18 trillion economy and you're growing at 5% per year, that's huge, isn't it? Even now. I don't think China's economy is doing poorly. There are many commentators who say that China is on the verge of collapse anytime now. There are many YouTube channels who will say China is on the verge of collapse. China's economy is in the pits, in the dumps. Some of them will say Xi Jinping has a heart problem. What evidence do they have of this? None. So I don't think China's economy is doing very poorly. It's okay. It's all right. I think it's doing decently well. Jaipal Singh says, tell about Rani Karnavati of Garhwal, Uttarakhand. Well, unfortunately, I am not familiar with the history of Rani Karnavati of Garhwal, Uttarakhand. I don't know about her history. So I won't be able to. But let's quickly try and see what this lady achieved. Rani Karnavati of Garhwal, Uttarakhand. Let's see. She was a 17th century ruler of the Garhwal kingdom who ruled as regent for her young son, Prithvipati Singh, after her husband, King Mahipat Shah, died in 1631. The queen who cut noses for cutting off the noses of invading Mughal soldiers. And she is remembered for her fierce protection of Garhwal sovereignty against the Mughal army and neighboring regions. She defeated the Mughals in 1640. She successfully led her army against a 30,000 strong Mughal contingent sent by Shah Jahan. Salim perhaps, forcing them to retreat in shame, ensuring the Mughals never attacked again during her life. Nakkati Rani, according to accounts by traveler Niccolao Manucci, she commanded captured Mughal soldiers to have their noses severed rather than simply executing them, sending a terrifying message to the Mughal court. She operated from the capital in Srinagar, Uttarakhand, and so on and so forth. Okay, sounds like a fantastic, brilliant ruler of Uttarakhand, but I am personally not familiar with her history. Okay. Op Ninjutsu says, West is ahead in AI. Well, that's an understatement, I think. The West is light years ahead in AI compared to, let's say, India. India needs to lead that, need to do it. The West, they love the choices. This time, they will have only one to respond on our terms. The West, see, there's an AI race going on right now. The AI race it has two participants. You have the United States and you have China. These are the two participants in the AI race. You have Europe as well, France, and some other European countries. France has the Mistral AI and so on. But the real race is between the US and China. The Chinese are doing a great job of staying neck to neck with the US. The Americans, they come up with these frontier models. The Chinese come up with these open source models, open weights models that are almost as good, if not as good, as the best American frontier models. Kimi, DeepSeek V4, they are comparable to the latest, most powerful Anthropic model, for example. So it's the US and China that are neck to neck. The Europeans are also doing a decent job of being in the game. They have decentish models. Russia is nowhere to be seen, and India is nowhere to be seen. India has something called Sarvam. That's great, but I'm not sure it's in the same league as the frontier models of the Americans and the Chinese. Sarvam, I think, is a great start for India, and I would like to congratulate the people behind Sarvam. But India is not really in the race right now, to be very honest. Okay. So first of all, India needs to start participating at some level in the race, and it has done that through Sarvam and whatever else is happening, right? Earlier you had Kritrim or whatever, which I'm not sure how good or bad it was because I did not ever use it. Sarvam, I hear it's a good model. So India needs to start participating in the race at some level, and eventually start clawing its way to the top tier of the race, right? The advantage the West has is that they own the semiconductor ecosystem. They make the best chips. The Chinese are being forced to make do with not the best chips, but the second level of chips in terms of quality and power. India doesn't make chips at all. We are beginning to make chips of our own. We are beginning the process, but it will take us maybe a decade to reach the level where the Americans and Chinese are right now. The Americans are. The Chinese are trying their best to catch up with the Americans. Well, India has a long mountain to climb before we can make the best chips in the world, right? Indigenously, completely. We can buy ASML photolithography machines and all, but then we are still controlled by ASML, right? The Dutch company. We need to be able to build our own photolithography machines. So we have a mountain to climb before we start competing at the top level in AI. But let's start climbing, I would say. Yeah. Radiology says, okay, no question. Well, thank you so much. Radiology DX under 60 seconds stocks. Thank you so much. Kakashi says, most Indian parties are not nation serving, either self-serving or foreign serving, which is worse. In Europe, most parties, left-wing and right-wing, are captured by either globalists or deep state or Zionists. I'll tell you what. About Europe, you're absolutely correct. Europe is not a sovereign entity. I mean, the EU is not a sovereign entity, and neither are the European nations sovereign entities. And the parties that you have in Europe are all captured by somebody or the other, and they don't serve the interests of their people. They serve globalist interests very clearly. It's no big secret at all. Some of the politicians in Europe do seek to serve their nation and their people, but they face a variety of constraints that essentially tie their hands behind their back, to at least to some degree, right? So that is the situation. In India, you say that most parties in India don't serve the nation. Most parties, political parties, either self-serving or, what's worse, allegedly serving foreign interests. Well, you know what? It's possible that you are right about India as well. Most parties may fall under one of these two categories, either self-serving or allegedly serving foreign interests. But I would say not all parties in India are like that. Hopefully. Probably it's not the case for every party. There are some parties in India which still serve the nation. I'm pretty sure of that. But most parties will probably fall under one of these two categories. Of course, I'm not naming any party, so yeah. All right. Teen Talks says, as you answered, our libraries were destroyed. So is our past lost forever? What is the solution? Only the ones that love history feel the pain. Yes, I feel the pain, so do you. So, what's the solution? That's a good question to ask. Our libraries were destroyed, all the written records were turned to ash 1,000 years ago. That is simply a fact. So, what is the solution now? The solution is the past lost to us now? The past is not necessarily lost to us. We still have archaeology. Our past is lying buried under the ground. We still can uncover the past. We can still reconstruct the past piece by piece, bit by bit, like a gigantic jigsaw puzzle. And this has to be a multidisciplinary approach. You can study the histories that are still encoded and embedded in our religious texts. You will find historical clues from that. But those have to be corroborated by hard archaeological evidence. You will find archaeoastronomical data embedded in our great epics and ancient texts, which can actually help you date those events. And you kind of know the geography where these things happen, so then you can use that to aid your archaeological targeting. That where should I start digging? Less than 1% of the Saraswati Sindhu archaeological sites have even been excavated. They have not even bothered to excavate 99% of them. For example, along the dry riverbed of the Saraswati, there are more than 2,000 archaeological sites that are known to exist, but nobody is bothered. The ASI is not bothered to even look at them. And most of the most of the dry riverbed of the Saraswati lies within India, not in temporary Pakistan. So there's a tremendous opportunity to start doing high quality archaeological research work in India itself, which will totally transform our understanding of our history slowly, gradually. Right? So you need to look at archaeology, you need to look at ancient religious and philosophical texts which still have historical information embedded in them. You need to look at archaeoastronomy, which can help you date ancient events, because you can't manufacture our astronomical data. You simply can't. You can't fake it, right? And then there is genetics. Genetics will tell us the deep history of our past, like tens of thousands of years of history of our past, right? That's another thing that's just waiting to happen. It'll destroy all of these picnic and tourism theories. So there's a lot we can still do. Yeah, we have lost the written records of our past, but there's so much more we can still do to uncover the truth about our past. Yep. Pankaj Som, thank you very much, Pankaj Som. Thank you so much. Abhay Singh says, what are some of the key roadblocks in the jet engine technology? Why is this technology particularly so elusive? Also, Tinde is apple gourd, by the way. Tinde is apple gourd. What's an apple gourd? Let's see. Apple gourd. Aha, Tinde. Oh, this is Tinde. It's a vegetable. Tasty. If you do it right. If you cook it right, if you know how to cook it, it's tasty. Otherwise, it'll be so, which applies to all vegetables and all food. Okay, so okay, 10 days that. What are some of the key roadblocks in jet engine technology? One of the key roadblocks is the fact that for a high quality jet engine, you need to have the engine. See, the jet engine, the internal pressure and temperature is very high. Okay. And it's typically, the temperature itself is typically several hundred degrees hotter than the melting point of steel. The temperature inside a jet engine, let's say a military jet engine, fighter jet engine, it's typically several hundred degrees hotter than the melting point of steel. So should the jet engine not just melt off? No. You need to have materials inside the jet engine for the turbine blades that can withstand those temperatures. So you need exotic materials. You need to be able to produce such materials. This comes under the domain of materials science. Maybe ceramics, maybe certain alloys of metals, and even alloys are not good enough. You have to be able to grow each turbine blade from a single crystal of the metal, that sort of thing. So you need extremely high quality technology, and there are only few nations have this sort of thing, and they've been developing this for decades, slowly, progressively, iteratively improving the technology. So that's one thing. That's one of the key roadblocks. I think we have solved that now in DRDO, possibly. I think we have probably solved that problem. We now are able to grow our own single crystal turbine blades. So I think we've solved that mostly. Mostly we've solved it. The second thing is, let's say you now have turbine blades that can withstand those incredibly, ridiculously high temperatures. But you need to be able to miniaturize the jet engine as much as possible. Otherwise, you will have a gigantic jet engine that's half the weight of a fighter plane. Then your fighter plane will become too heavy. You want your fighter planes to be maneuverable, agile, and light, which means you need to have powerful jet engines that are small. So the second roadblock is how to make it as small as possible, right? So if you see Sukhoi 30 fighter jets, they have two gigantic jet engines, very powerful but huge. Russian jet engines are typically large. Western jet engines are typically smaller. So you want something that's as small as you can make it. So these are some of the roadblocks, you could say. And that's why this technology is particularly, like you say, so elusive. So you've got to solve the problem step by step, year after year, make progress, and eventually you have something that works. I think India is very close to actually making the Kaveri engine work in such a way that it can actually be used in a proper fighter plane. We're not very far from that now. Okay, Kakashi says, please interview Ranjit Bajaj, a staunch nationalist involved in army and Indian sports. He knows history, political failures about Indian sports and football specifically. Let me Google this gentleman, Ranjit Bajaj. Ranjit Bajaj. अरे इंग्लिश में लिखो, Ranjit Bajaj. Internet personality, Minerva Academy FC. Okay, he does podcasts. Okay, he's got a Twitter account. Okay, that's what he looks like. So he's the director of the Minerva Academy Football Club. Right, okay. And so on. Apparently some controversies, and this is what the gentleman looks like. He apparently is the director of a football club. Okay, I will look into this and the possibility of doing this, and if it aligns, then I could think of doing it. See, mostly I have, as you know, earlier, until 2024, I was releasing podcasts like once a week. Now it's no longer on a schedule. I do it once in a while. But yes, I will definitely consider doing podcasts with specific people who align with what interests me, right? So I'm no longer an interviewer mostly, but I will still be open to do that once in a while. So thank you for the recommendation. I will look into this properly. Piyush Sinha says, it's only the Americans who are not attacking Iran's oil infrastructure. Otherwise, on the other side, Israelis are constantly attacking it. It's only the US who don't have the clarity for what they are fighting. The Israelis have absolutely a 10,000% operational clarity for what they want to achieve in Iran, if that meant destroying their oil infrastructure also. I would tend to agree with you that the Israelis know exactly what they are after and exactly what they want. The Israelis, I agree, have complete operational and geopolitical clarity about what their objectives are. They have 100% clear about what they want to do. The Americans, I'm not sure about that. Yeah. When they launched this war against Iran, the Americans, it was a muddled decision. and the operation was muddled. They imagined it looks like that the military operation would dictate the political outcomes. It's the political objectives that are supposed to drive military operations. You need to have a very clear political objective in mind, and that is supposed to drive your military operation, and that military operation should take you to the desired outcome. In this case, it's like, let's go and bomb and destroy, and then let's see what outcomes come out of this. Right. So that was muddled thinking, and that's why they and historically they just walk in and start bombarding everything and flatten everything, and then they say we won. Didn't work this time in against Iran. So there was no clarity from the Americans what they were trying to achieve. They thought that in a couple of days, 48 hours, we will have a regime change. The Iranians will come begging for a ceasefire after we kill the Ayatollah. Completely mistaken, right? So the Americans did not have clarity. The Israelis have complete clarity about what they want to do, and the Israelis most likely are fine with even with destroying Iran's oil infrastructure. I'm pretty sure of that. Yes. Kakashi says, one, why are Western media, both left and right wing, really harsh on India, for example, on Pakistan? Secondly, does China or Xi Jinping respect Pakistan or just use it? Thirdly, what's happening in Mali? Mali. Okay, so why are Western media, both left and right wing, harsh on India about various things, not only on Pakistan? Why? The left wing and right wing are in the West are very different, right? The left wing are typically the liberal, atheist, anti-religion people, which means they oppose Christianity and all that. And they are the people of the book, Marx's book, that sort of thing. They make common cause with the Palestinians and so on. That's the left wing in the West, which includes the left-wing media. The right-wing media in the West is all about traditional values and conservative values and Christianity and all that. Very different groups of people and very different ideologies and worldviews. And they are both harsh on India. That's true. So from the left-wing perspective, the anti-religion perspective, the problem is that they are still Abrahamic in mindset. And they still hate Hinduism and polytheism and Indian civilization. And also they have made common cause with the Palestinians. The Pakistanis and Palestinians are put in the same bucket. And they have inherited the Marxist view about India, that India's civilization needs to be destroyed. Karl Marx was of the opinion that India's civilization is evil, primitive, backward, etc. It needs to be destroyed and civilized with Western values. See, the main problem of the left is that India's civilizational values are non-Western. The left wing in the West is still Western. They want to impose whatever is currently the thing in the West, like gender ideology and all that stuff. In India's civilization, as long as it exists, cannot absorb all that stuff. India's civilization is apart from is different. India's civilizational values are such that as long as those values are in the people of India, Western liberal ideology cannot take root in India. That's why the left wing in the US and in the West hates India. The right wing in the US and the West, that's the traditional Christian worldview people. They want India to become Christian. But India refuses to do that. Or at least India is too slow to do that. And that's why they hate India. Okay? And overall, they support Pakistan for this reason. Now, does China and Xi Jinping respect Pakistan or just use it? Everybody uses Pakistan. Nobody respects Pakistan. That's just a fact of life. No one respects Pakistan. They all use Pakistan, right? What's happening in the Mali conflict? Mali conflict. Well, actually, it's not a fun thing. It's terrible. It's a proxy conflict between, you could say, the West and Russia. And when there's Russia, there's some involvement of China also. So in 23, around the time, there was a regime change, a coup in Niger, and before that, there were regime changes in Burkina Faso, etc. Right, and this is the Sahel region of Africa, which was historically dominated by France, and these coups were anti-imperial or anti-colonial coups, which is the people taking back their country from the West, from the French, and so on. So you have these governments in these countries that are aligned with Russia and China, mostly with Russia. Okay, and the West is trying to take back some ground in the region, and that's why we have the Mali conflict right now. So Russia used to operate through the Wagner group earlier. Prigozhin was the leader of the Wagner group. He sadly had an accident. He passed away. Mr. Putin laid flowers at his grave, by the way. Wasn't a window this time, it was a plane. And now you have the Africa core of Russia. So it's a proxy conflict between Russia and the West, essentially. That's what's happening in Mali, to put it in a nutshell. Yes, I'm glad someone is noticing what's happening in Mali. Okay. Sangam Kumar says, is Pakistan fifth generation jet big threat to India if war starts? Does Pakistan have a fifth generation fighter plane? I don't think they have it. They haven't acquired the F-35 from the Americans. The Americans won't ever give that to Pakistan, no matter how much they pay. And they can't pay. They can only borrow and then pay. The Chinese may perhaps, they've been making noises that they will sell their J whatever 30, whatever it is, their fifth generation fighter plane to Pakistan. If the Chinese sell that to Pakistan, and if it's a good enough jet, then it could be a problem for India. If there's a war, it could be a problem for India. Yeah. So we'll have to factor that threat into our calculations if the Chinese sell that jet to Pakistan. Thus far, it's not happened, but we will have to factor that into our calculations if this comes to pass. NVM says, how feasible are armed satellites for intercepting ballistic missiles given current technological limits? That's an interesting question. Armed satellites for intercepting ballistic missiles. So what kind of arms would you have on an armed satellite that could intercept a ballistic missile? You would have an anti-satellite, an anti-missile weapon. So how do you destroy a missile that's incoming? You destroy it using an interceptor. Or you could destroy it using a laser. So if you have a satellite in orbit, let's say 500 kilometers altitude or 400, whatever. So typically a typical ballistic missile is a ballistic trajectory, a parabolic path. It is launched, it exits the atmosphere, it goes above 100 kilometers from the surface, then it re-enters the atmosphere and then hits the target. So if you're a satellite up there, you should be able to first of all detect the launch and then intercept the missile and destroy it using an interceptor or a laser or a directed energy weapon. So in orbit, you have access to sunlight far better than what you have on the surface of the Earth. So you could use directed energy weapons possibly, which is still kind of quasi science fiction, or you could use interceptors, which obviously will be limited in quantity. So I think right now it's kind of hard to achieve. Because if you were to launch an interceptor missile from a satellite, that interceptor has to be reasonably large. And launching it will hit the satellite with an impulse that will drive it out of orbit potentially. So you can only launch once and then the satellite is gone. That doesn't make sense. Maybe you can reorient the satellite if it is. So there are engineering challenges to this. I think it makes much more sense to have directed energy weapons on a satellite. You can have a big, array of what's it called? Solar panels that will power the directed energy weapons and maybe capacitors and whatnot to replenish that. And then you could perhaps take out the missile that's being launched using that laser or whatever. I think that makes more sense, possibly. But yeah, I think right now it's science fiction unless it has actually been done secretly by some countries. Yeah. Okay. Piyush Sinha says, I don't think that Iran's victory in this war will immediately crash the petrodollar and American hegemony, just like they thought that US defeat in Vietnam would mean the end of US superpower status. I agree with you. It won't crash immediately the petrodollar or anything. If Iran can actually become the hegemon in West Asia, which is not the case right now. Right now, it's not the case. But let's say, see, what we know, what's happened thus far is that the Iranians have probably destroyed all the American military bases in the region, but the Americans can still use the military bases of the host nations, which are not American military bases. So the US can use Saudi air bases and other bases. The US can use other nations' air bases to launch further future operations potentially if they want on Iran. But the bases they had themselves made are destroyed. But right now, the Americans are still blockading the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians haven't been able to stop that blockade or end the blockade. Iran probably does not want at this stage to resume hostilities and a hot war unless the Americans impose that on them. So right now it's kind of a stalemate. The Americans are still a major force in the region. They still are. They still have warships near the Strait of Hormuz, reasonably close to the Strait of Hormuz. They still have the Gulf nations, Arab nations on their side, on the side of the Americans. So it's still kind of a stalemate situation, right? If Iran actually wins and imposes an actual outright defeat on the Americans and completely clears the American presence from the region, then it will be able to impose Iranian terms on the Arab nations. That could crash the petrodollar in a reasonably short amount of time. Right now, the petrodollar is not going to crash. Maybe it will decline slowly, but there's no crash coming right now. Yeah, so, yeah. Ritik says, is Sri Lanka a US or Chinese vassal? How it became? Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is not in the news now, right? It had issues, very bad economic issues a couple of 2-3 years ago, right? And while the Rajapaksas were ruling Sri Lanka was very much aligned with China. But Gotabaya Rajapaksa was an American citizen. Mahinda Rajapaksa probably wasn't, but Gotabaya was. I think Sri Lanka, right now, I would say it's more aligned possibly on the side of the US than China. More US than China. As of now, right now. That's how I see it. Kraz says, what do you think could be the reason behind our PM urging people to avoid gold buying, save energy, prefer working from home, and reduce foreign travel? So I think I explained that in detail just a few minutes ago, but one can obviously revisit that. Right now, the world is facing an energy crisis. India has strategic oil reserves of about around maybe 60 or so days. And India has ensured it's arranged more oil coming to India, which will last another 60 days. So it's going to be that sort of balance we'll have to maintain. The problem, the energy crisis has been caused by the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. About 20% of the global energy comes from the Strait of Hormuz. And the Americans and Israelis, their actions have closed the Strait of Hormuz mostly. If anything is coming through, it's been reduced to a trickle. And for India, way more of our energy comes from the Strait of Hormuz, much more than 20%. So now we have to import our energy from the US, from Russia, and other places. And liquefied natural gas, LNG, LPG, whatever, where do we get it from? We'll have to find other sources for that. In India, some restaurants are already no longer operational because of the gas shortage and so on. So overall, the world is facing a severe energy crisis, and it is affecting India also significantly. It is not an actual crisis for India right now, but the situation isn't good. And this situation is not going to ameliorate over the next 2 weeks. Things are going to be bad for a year or two at least. Okay? So the government of India is doing a good job of managing the situation. But it makes sense for us right now as the people of India to tweak our lifestyle such that we use less energy wherever possible. So if you work from home, you don't have to commute, you don't have to travel by car or whatever. That way you are saving, you're conserving some of the uh, you know diesel, petrol, whatever, right? If you don't travel by air, you're conserving the kerosene, jet fuel. Apart from that, we are now forced to, because of this crisis, spend more of our foreign exchange reserves to buy more expensive oil from other parts of the world. So our foreign exchange reserves should not go too down, should not be depleted. Now, if you import gold from other countries, because we don't produce too much gold now, unlike in the historical past. So if our people still have this big appetite for gold, we have to keep importing gold, which depletes our foreign exchange reserves. If we keep traveling across the world on holidays and all, we're going to have to purchase tickets, airline tickets, which again will deplete our foreign exchange reserves. So right now, for a year or two, don't buy gold, work from home, save energy wherever possible, and as far as possible, travel. Don't go abroad. Don't travel abroad unless it is necessary, unavoidable, like business travel or whatever. Don't travel for leisure and tourism and all for now. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think I would say it's something Indians should agree with right now. Yeah, that's right. Rituraj Sengupta says, is scientific reverse aging or immortality possible? What breakthroughs are needed? Will the world become a chaos if having limited resources if it's achieved? Okay. Reversing of aging and immortality. So right now the focus is on slowing down the aging process and maybe stopping it potentially if possible. Then we can think about reversing it and immortality. So aging is something you see in all human beings, all non-human species mostly, right? And what causes aging is the process of the shortening of the ends of the chromosomes in our cells. So chromosomes, there are 23 chromosomes in the human body, right? In the human cells. And the ends of the chromosomes are called telomeres. They're made of a substance called telomerase. And the more cellular division happens in the body, over time, the ends of the chromosomes, they slowly, gradually shorten over time. It is this process of shortening of the telomeres that causes the process of aging. Okay, so the focus right now of medical research in this domain is on finding ways to halt the process of the shortening of the telomeres. Okay, if you can halt that process, then you can potentially perhaps halt the aging process. So let's say you're 35 and you somehow take a medicine or whatever that stops the shortening of the telomeres, then for the next 50 years you can be biologically 35 years old. Potentially, that's the thought, that's the idea. So you want to first either slow down the shortening of the telomeres, which means you can live longer, then potentially, if possible, stop the shortening of the telomeres, which means you can be stuck at a certain biological age, and then perhaps reverse it, which makes you younger, which could perhaps lead to immortality. So that's the thing. That's the direction or the goal or the vision of medical research in this domain. What breakthroughs are needed? Well, I don't know the specific breakthroughs that are needed, but yeah, the process is what I described. Will the world go into chaos if because of limited resources? If everybody becomes immortal, of course. So if this treatment is discovered, it will be extraordinarily expensive. It won't be available for everybody. Okay. Okay. Ariz Akram. Thank you so much, Ariz Akram ji. Thank you so much. Sparush says, SP Arush says, I think your subs dropped again. Maybe they did. That's okay. These things are like the weather. These things are beyond your control. Why worry about them? That's all right. Don't feel bad. No issues. Rohit says, view on Vijay playing Vande Mataram before Tamil Anthem. I am not aware of this, and I don't know. Is the gentleman now the chief minister of Tamil Nadu? I am not aware of this. And he played Vande Mataram before Tamil Anthem. I have no idea about this. Sorry, and I'd rather not comment about this since I don't have any idea about this. Sorry about that. Sinan says NCERT textbooks are changing finally. Well, baby steps. Step by step, we make progress. Baby steps. One step, small step, baby step at a time. Overall, good news. I'm glad this is happening. I'm glad it's happening. Yeah. Varinder Singh says Punjabi 20.8 Western step herder Yamna ancestry. Yes. We are the Aryan invaders. We are the evil Narthis, right? Narthis. Look. Various parts of India, various regions of India, you're going to have different genetic makeups. Now, the thing is, Western steppe herder ancestry, Yamnaya ancestry, Iranian ancestry, all these things are given the tag of ancestry. But why do geneticists never talk about Indian ancestry? Why is a certain genetic makeup called Iranian ancestry? Why is a certain genetic makeup called Yamnaya ancestry? Why is a certain genetic makeup called Western steppe herder ancestry? But there is no genetic makeup that's called Indian ancestry. Why is that? The fact of the matter is that when the last out of Africa migration happened, the first place where these migrants properly settled down in is the Indian subcontinent. This happened, whatever, between 85 to 65,000 years ago. And it is from the Indian subcontinent that the actual expansion across Eurasia happened. Would you like me to corroborate what I'm claiming? Let me show you. Haplogroup F. That's a patrilineal haplogroup. Okay? Let us see. Check it out. F is the first, it's the original non-African haplogroup. It originated in India. It's from India that all the other populations migrated across Eurasia. India was the first place. Check it out. Here it's showing slightly north of India, but you get the point. And even the oldest matrilineal non-African haplogroups, M, N, R, they first originated in India. India is the founder's zone of the out of Africa migration. But your geneticists will say, oh, there is Iranian ancestry, there's Western steppe herder ancestry, there's Yamna ancestry, but no Indian ancestry. All these Western steppe herders, these Yamnayas, the Zagros people, their ancestry was originally Indian, but they won't show you that. They won't ever tell you that. Indian ancestry is the original out of Africa ancestry, the original non-African ancestry. These Yamnayas, their ancestors, they came from India. The Western steppe herders, their ancestors emerged out of India. The Zagros mountain people from 10,000 years ago, their ancestors came from India. So all of this is driven by some kind of ideology and some kind of agenda. Right? I mean, 2000 years ago, there was an introgression of at least two ethnic groups into India, roughly 2000 years ago. First of all, you had the Scythians who entered India, northern and western India. And they set up the great kingdoms, the empires, Mahakshatrapas, right? Scythians, the Shakas. And then soon after that, you had the Kushans who entered India, and they set up the great Kushan Empire. One of our greatest emperors was Kanishka. Now, were these foreign to us? The Scythians, when they entered India and became part of India, did they ever have any ethnic clashes with Indians or whatever? Never. Did they ever have any cultural clashes with Indians? No. The Scythians were of Indian ancestry. They spent maybe 2,000-3,000 years in Central Asia. But when they entered India, they were re-entering India. And the same goes for the Kushans. So if you look at northern India, western India, you will find traces of non-Indian ancestry, because the Scythians had spent 2,000-3,000, maybe 5,000 years outside of the subcontinent, and they had intermingled with the peoples from all over the place. And the same goes for Kushans. But overall, at the end of the day, what matters is your culture, not your DNA. Remember that always. Culture matters, not DNA. The Pakistanis have the same DNA as us, as me. But does it matter? I suppose most of them would want us dead. Remember, it's your culture and civilization that matters, not your DNA. Aaron is here. Aaron says 1 out of 2. Oh, I've heard Saudi has very harsh punishments for every crime, even small crimes, even small ones. Meanwhile, we don't provide death sentence even for grape. Why? And secondly, why don't we learn something good from them and improve our society's moral sense? We might even have less corruption and less law breaking that way. Aaron makes a very important point. My point is this. First of all, your point is well taken. Okay? Certain crimes, I think they merit the harshest of punishments. Now, is it the case that if we impose harsh punishments for certain things, then you will have a better law and order situation in India? Is that the case? That for certain crimes, if we impose the harshest of penalties, then law and order will improve? I don't think it's the case. What will make law and order improve is that punishment is guaranteed if you break the law, even if the punishment is small. In India, there's no enforcement of the rules or the laws. Go outside of your house and look at the traffic wherever you are living in India. Is anybody following any traffic rules? No. But why are they not following the traffic rules? Because nobody is enforcing them. There is no enforcement of anything in India. All the laws, all the rules, wonderful rules and laws are there on paper. Nobody is enforcing them. And actually, the rules and laws are actually allegedly sometimes or many times being willfully broken by those who are supposed to uphold them allegedly. That's the issue. You can have mild punishments, but if they are enforced, guaranteed enforcement, then even mild punishments become significant deterrents, especially for those who want to break the law all the time. Then even a mild punishment accumulates and eventually it becomes a harsher punishment. If you're a routine breaker of the law, then you can have a different thing. So the point is, you need enforcement. You need guaranteed enforcement and implementation of the penalties. Then even if the penalties are reasonably lenient, they become a major deterrent. That's what needs to happen in India. I don't think we need to have death penalty for everything, but you need to have guaranteed enforcement of penalties. And of course, for some things, you need to have harsh punishments. No question about that. Anabil Shorkar says, EU is not in the AI race due to high data regulation. Yeah, they have the talent, they have the money and the methodology and the means and all, but they have too much regulation. They have too much red tape and bureaucracy. Good God, I think they've learned from the Indians. The EU is so incredibly bureaucratic and all that. And that's why the EU is not really a participant in the AI race. They have okay AI systems. Mistral is okay. If you don't have the money, if you have less money, if you have a small budget, you can make do with Mistral or whatever. But the API calls and all. But if you really want the best models, you either go with the American models or the Chinese models, not the European models. It's because of the overly bureaucratic nature of and overly regulated nature of the EU. Mostly it's that. Sinan says, best way to study for an exam prepping for UPSC. Well, the best way to study for I don't know about UPSC. Okay, I have no idea about UPSC, but the best way to study for any exam is, first of all, know how much time you have left. Let's say it's 6 months down the line, the exam is there. Plenty of time. Get the last 5 years question papers and just tear them apart. I mean, solve every problem in a simulated situation. Let's say the exam is 3 hours long. Then take the paper and solve it in 3 hours. Then see what you did right, what you did wrong. Whatever you got wrong, study it, then do it again, and get the last 5 years exam papers, which is typically at least 10 papers for each subject. That should be more than enough for you to get great marks if you can do that, and rigorously test yourself over and over again, solving 3 hour exam papers over and over again. Eventually, you will do it so much that you will memorize every answer, and that's obviously the objective. That's how you do great in exams. So passing exams and doing great in exams is not the same thing as actually learning something. In India, the whole system is all about how well can you pass exams and how well can you perform in exams, not how much can you actually learn about something, about a subject. So the best way to study for an exam is to just get the syllabus, the textbook, and the question papers, and look at the question paper. Okay, this is the question, the first question. Where can I get the answer? Okay, that's how we do it. Yeah. Rahul says, tell us your opinion about BJP winning West Bengal in the future and its future. Like I said multiple times over the last 2 3 days, it's great. Yeah. Um, West Bengal is a border state. You have tens of millions of illegal Bangladeshi infiltrators all across India who probably have come in through West Bengal, the open porous borders allegedly of West Bengal. So now that the BJP has won, you have the same party in power in the state of West Bengal and in the center. So there'll be better synergy, better cooperation, better alignment, way less friction, resistance, all that. And hopefully now the borders will be secured and the illegals will be over time sent back. And and obviously one hears that the conditions and overall thing was very, very bad in West Bengal all these years. So I think the long nightmare is finally over for the people of Bengal. I hope that Bengali culture once again flourishes. The people are able to express themselves culturally and religiously all over again. And Bengal is one of the richest histories and all that in India. So one hopes to see a great efflorescence and reflourishing of Bengal and great prosperity in the future. I think the future looks bright now. Deep M 768888 has become a new member. Thank you so much, sir or ma'am. Thank you so much, and welcome to the channel's membership. Thank you very much. OP Ninjutsu says India needs a government project for AGI, artificial general intelligence, same priority as Atom, the atomic project. Buddha should smile again. We have split the atom back then in 1974 with peanuts. We can do it again. Yes, we should have the same approach, the same mindset. Nobody helped us with our nuclear program. We did it entirely on our own. No one helped us. We're the only nation apart from the US to develop this program entirely on our own. So we certainly should have the same mindset, the same approach, the same attitude towards the AI race as well. No one's going to help us. We have to do it on our own, using our own resources, know-how, talent, brains, and we have it all. It'll take us some time. Let's go for it. I completely agree with you. Yes, sir. NVM says, with advances in AI, could a Sanskrit-trained indigenous large language model help reconstruct or regenerate missing parts of damaged ancient manuscripts? It's possible. So you could train a large language model entirely on the gigantic corpus of Sanskrit texts that we have, ancient Sanskrit texts. It will be a genuine Sanskrit expert, a genuine expert in our ancient literary heritage, religious and spiritual and cultural heritage. It could also potentially, it's very possible it may help us reconstruct missing parts of texts. It's very possible. Yes, very possible. I would like to see this happen. I would very much like to see this happen. Yeah. Kiki Sushant says, thank you, sir. Well, thank you to you, Kiki Sushant ji. Thank you so much. No question, but thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Pradeep Kumar Roy, good to see you back, sir. In a video long back, Professor Jiang once said that money is unlimited, power is limited. If this is true, then why is there poverty in the world? Money is unlimited, okay. See, what is money? It's a great question. I don't know about what Professor Jiang said, but okay. Money is unlimited. What is money actually? Is it pieces of paper? No, money is a proxy. Money is a proxy for real world products. Money is like fuel. Money is a proxy for energy in a sense. Money. So you could say unlimited resources on the planet. You could say the resources on the planet are of course limited, but money is a proxy for all of that, right? So money is a proxy for everything, every resource that exists on the planet. So using money, you can buy whatever's available. So money is not exactly unlimited. It is limited by what's available on the planet, which obviously is a lot. But power is limited. Power is about control, command and control. And you want to command and you want to control regions of the planet. And once you control a certain region, you want to cordon off the resources from the rest of the world. You want to control all the resources yourself, and then you may sell those to others, but for a price. And that's the whole game. And why is there poverty in the world? Because the rich and the powerful ensure that all the resources are available with them. They hoard the resources and they hoard the money. The money and the resources are both hoarded. You have enough money in the world to completely end poverty, hunger, disease, everything. But will the US and Europe release that money for the rest of the world? They won't, right? That's why there's poverty in the world. And the poverty is actively maintained, actually. Right? That's the thing. The Grok says, why South Indians are turning communists or left? I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe I couldn't even speculate. Are South Indians all turning communists? I'm not sure if that's the case. So, yeah, I don't know. Sorry. Template Bazaar says, why politicians keep India mediocre and how to keep hope? Well, I would not say that all politicians want to keep India mediocre, but the average politician is the average. See, in India, the system is such that the whole system is a rent-seeking system overall. There are many politicians who are genuine patriots and nationalists and who want to make India better, but they are the exception. The average politician is kind of a rent seeker, right? They want to extract from the land, from the people, from the nation, and fill their bank balances. So that's why they do it. The average politician, not all, of course. Some are great, some are fantastic, but the average politician is like that, low quality, unfortunately. How to keep hope? Look at the 10,000-year-old history of India. We've been great so many times in the past. We've also faced so many problems, but we've always bounced back. Right? So our past history, see, we are going through a certain period of time. 1,000 years we have faced trouble for an occupation. After 1947, we are facing the problem of mediocrity. There have been times in various parts of India where we had similar situations. For example, in Bangladesh, which is now West Bengal, Bangladesh, you had a couple of centuries of Matsya Nyaya, absolute lawlessness. And then you had the emergence of King Shashank, who brought back the greatness and glory of Bangladesh. It took a couple of centuries. Sometimes it takes time. But we will prevail, we will persevere, and we will prevail, and we will be great again. So that's the hope. Our hope, it is validated by our past history. Okay. Ron says, Google's making its data centers in India. But the chip design will be in the US, manufacturing in Taiwan, but India will only provide land and private data. Well, that's the whole model. They don't want India to do it chip design. They don't want India to do the manufacturing. They want India to provide its energy, electricity, water, land, and the data. That's a colonial extractive mindset. Of course it is. Of course it is. So we have to be, well, the government of India needs to make the right choices when it comes to these things. Piyush Sinha says, what an irony that people are calling Dhurandhar a propaganda, even if it is, but at least it's against Pakistan. And these same people consume all that Western stuff, Hollywood movies, as real life events. I think Dhurandhar 1 and 2 have been immensely popular. They are huge hits, super hits. Of course, there are some people who will call it propaganda. Most of the people are happy with the movie. Most of the people they found the movie fabulous. I watched both movies, breaking my own self-imposed moratorium of not watching Hindi cinema. For these two movies, I made an exception. And I was so pleased I did it because I enjoyed both the movies. I loved both the movies. I loved the subtle humor. I loved everything about them. Some people, those people will never be happy, right? Those people will never be happy. And they're the same people who will consume all the propaganda and all that. Ignore those people. Those people ignore them. They are irrelevant, or make them irrelevant. Piyush Sinha says, suddenly all the leftist media woke up. Okay, the same thing. Suddenly all the leftist media woke up to debunk facts in Dhurandhar movie. After all, it's just a movie. They never debunk movies like Haider. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but yeah. And many other movies who have portrayed Indian army in bad light. They will not call Top Gun propaganda. They won't call all these Hollywood movies propaganda. They will not call the World War II movies that show America as the great savior as propaganda. But they will try and debunk allegedly facts or depictions in Dhurandhar. Those people, well, you can guess where their money comes from, where their funding comes from, what their agenda is, right? Whoever they are, ignore such people. Those people, they are more and more irrelevant. As time passes, they will become more and more. They are going the way of the dinosaurs. That's it. Ignore them. And it's actually entertaining to see their meltdowns. NVM says, follow up for my earlier question. Can it be achieved without entering an academic research path? What kind of infrastructure would be needed? What was your earlier question? When I'm doing these live streams, my short-term memory is very short. I don't remember your earlier question. I go through so many questions that I can't remember the earlier one, which came some time ago, maybe many minutes ago. I don't remember. Can it be achieved without entering an academic research path? Oh, you mean the AI? Sanskrit AI, is that what you're talking about? I don't remember what your earlier question was. I'm very sorry. That question is now part of history. But if you're talking about the Sanskrit, if you are the one who asked the Sanskrit AI top question, it doesn't look like that's a question. I am so sorry, I can't remember your previous question. I have gone through so many questions right now that I won't be able to remember right now. I apologize for that. Sorry. Rohan Bidi says, good to see you, sir. Do we know which texts were stored in Nalanda and other universities prior to their destruction? If not, then sadly, we don't even know what we lost. Well, we don't know what texts were there in the library, in the libraries. We have no idea what texts were kept there. Those are lost permanently. We don't even know what we lost. That is the truth. Yeah, we don't know. After Nalanda was destroyed, there's a Tibetan monk who came to India, to the Bihar region, and he visited the ruins of Nalanda a few years or a few months or whatever after it was destroyed. And he found an elderly teacher, professor, whose name was Rahul Shribhadra. who was teaching a handful of students in the ruins. He was a professor of the university who had somehow survived the massacre. And he was trying his best in his 90s. He was in his 90s at the time. He was trying to somehow keep the tradition of knowledge alive by teaching youngsters. But after the death of people like him, all the memories were lost. So we don't even know what we lost, unfortunately. Jazz 1993 Forever says, Google AI says Kuki people are native to northeastern Indian states. What? That's Google AI, isn't it? That's Google AI. Yep, that's how narratives are shaped. That's how narratives are shaped. You see, do not believe everything artificial intelligence models, large language models, chatbots, don't believe everything they tell you. Be very careful about what you believe. Because just like Wikipedia, these are not necessarily reliable sources of information. All right. Varinder Singh says, IVC 59.4%, Western Step Herder 20.8%, Iranian Neolithic Farmer 8%, Anatolian Neolithic Farmer 7.6%, Levantine Neolithic Farmer 2.6%, East Asian 1.5%. Did you do a genetic test or something, ancestry test? Or are you talking about the people of Punjab? So, like the earlier point I made, all these genetic components are called so-and-so ancestry. Anatolian Neolithic farmer ancestry, Iranian Neolithic farmer ancestry, Zagros ancestry, Western steppe herder ancestry, Levantine Neolithic farmer ancestry, East Asian ancestry. All these various genetic components are given these names, these tags. But there is no such thing allegedly, apparently in genetics called Indian ancestry. Do you people not see the problem here? That Indian ancestry doesn't exist, everything else is ancestry, which all came out of India. That's the problem. That's the blatant agenda at view here. They're distorting science. They're distorting science. No matter what your haplogroup is, patrilinear or matrilineal, it is a downstream haplogroup. It's a subclade of Indian origin haplogroups. But they don't want you to understand these things because genetics is too complicated for most people to understand. They're trying to mislead you all. All these scientists in these very well endowed research labs, they're misleading you, unfortunately. That's the problem. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, we are nearing some COVID lockdown like situation because of this Gulf War ? Oil and gas shortage, work from home. It's not going to be like a COVID lockdown situation, but there is an energy crisis in the world. India is doing reasonably well. The government of India is doing a good job of managing the issue, the problem. But there is a shortage of energy in the world triggered by the disaster brought upon us by the Israelis and the Americans by launching this unprovoked war against Iran, and after that blockading the Strait of Hormuz. So this is the problem they have created, but we have to deal with the situation right now. So for the next year or so, I think we will have to take some measures to reduce our usage of energy and fuel and so on, and to conserve India's foreign exchange reserves and so on. So that's why, like the Prime Minister said, we will have to take some measures for the next 1 or 2 years. And so it's not going to be a COVID lockdown like situation. I don't think it's going to go to that extent. But we will have to take some, like they say, austerity measures temporarily. But I think the government is doing a great job of managing the situation overall. And there is absolutely no need for Indians to panic about the situation, not at all. But it's gonna cause some inconveniences for some time. Okay. Anuj Kumar Sharma says Tata Fab may meet only 10%, rest mostly OSAT. Tata Fab may meet only about 10%, rest is mostly OSAT. What is Tata Fab? What is OSAT? 10% of what? What is OSAT? What is that? Outsourced semiconductor assembly and test. Okay. So Tatas are in the fab business, are they? and they may meet about 10% of India's requirements. Most of the rest are outsourced semiconductor assembly and test. So India is in the beginning stage of the whole journey of becoming self-sufficient in semiconductors and microchips and all that. It's going to be a process. Maybe the next 1 or 2 years we will meet 10%. In 5 years we may reach 30%. In 10 years we may be at 80%. Let's see, right? Let's be optimistic. Piyush Sinha says, good night, sir. As usual, a wonderful session. Tomorrow my class 12th results are coming. Okay. I am in so much tension now. I think I will get compart in physics education system of India real failure. What I will say is all the best for your results tomorrow. Of course, it can be a tense situation when you are waiting for your results. All the best for your results, and even if it doesn't go the way you hope it will, you can always maybe what's the if the results aren't great, what do? You can do an improvement, right? I suppose, or whatever it is, you will find a way to deal with it, right? I'm sure you will. See, these things like 10th standard exam, 12th standard exam, they, when you are at that stage of your life, they sound like such a big deal, but overall it's not going to define the rest of your life, even if it doesn't go great. Okay, so don't worry about it too much. Whatever is the outcome, I'm sure you will find great ways of dealing with that. So all the best for the results, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, take care, all the best. Varinder Singh says, isn't 59.4% IVC part resembling original old part? Okay, genetic ancestry you're talking about. Isn't 59.4 IVC part Indus Valley culture ancestry? Okay, are they assigning it the tag of ancestry, IVC ancestry? So the problem is in India, they say there is AASI, AANI, ancient ancestral South Indian, ancient ancestral North Indian. So they have they have tried to bifurcate India into Aryan and Dravidian once again, which once again presupposes that India, the Aryan part, came from outside somewhere. So what needs to happen? I'll tell you what needs to happen. In India, we need to do a proper, deep and broad survey of our genetics in-house, not with David Reich or somebody spearheading the program. It has to be our geneticists and scientists, perhaps like Dr. Neeraj Rai, who should lead this. We need to have tens of thousands of samples and do a detailed, deep and broad systematic survey of our genetics. Then all the truth will come out. So all these things I don't really care about, whatever ancestries these foreigners are assigning to us. It's like they are trying to teach us our history, our culture, our civilization from their perspective. We don't need that. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, one of my friends went to a nearby hospital for tooth extraction. The doc gave him allergy medicines that cause kidney damage and further hospital treatments. How to change this medical mafia industry? Well, we can't change it. We, the citizens, can't change it. The government of India needs to do something about this. We have allowed healthcare to become a business, an industry. The solution is to make healthcare free, tax the people, but give high quality free healthcare, like in any civilized country. Historically, for thousands of years in India, we had free healthcare and free education. That's what needs to happen. The government of India is the only entity that can change this. We, the people, can't do a thing about this. That's the problem. Terrible to hear what happened here. Terrible to hear. I hope your friend is better. Honest Human says, I was reading Buddhists were the first who made fake stories about Rama, Shiva, Parvati. Rama, Sita, Shiva, Parvati, as I remember how we were showing with the gods too. Well, facts are facts. Facts are facts. The truth is the truth. Yeah. If you see the various depictions of Buddhist deities, whether it is Vajrayana, whether it is whatever, you will show them depicted as trampling the older Hindu gods and goddesses. You'll see that. It's just a fact. Look it up. Look it up. And I'm sure there are fake stories that were made. I'm sure that that's available in present in today's literature too. I'm sure. Yeah. So it's just what happened in historically. Okay. It's just a fact. Nishu says, glad to see you. Always, thank you so much. Thank you. Were Jews bankers in the early and pre-AD years? Are they using that money to project power today? I am not very familiar with the history of the Jewish people. I know for a fact that once they had a presence in Europe, it looks like they became moneylenders. Moneylenders, and they were apparently very good with money. Some of them were even in a position where they would lend money to kings to finance various military operations and so on, which brought them into positions of great power in Europe. And perhaps some of the first banks were possibly um, founded and operated by Jewish families. Perhaps I once again my knowledge of this is not very deep. I haven't studied these aspects of history, but yes, Jews were typically money lenders and so on in Europe in the past 1,000 years at least. I don't know what before that. The past 1,000 years or so, yes, definitely. Okay, Fraud Hawk says, your views on Kunal Indus Valley site in Haryana. I don't have too many views about this because I'm not very aware of what's going on there right now. Kunal IVC site, 8,000-year-old, right? Yeah, it seems to be similar to Rakigari in the layout and so on, but I haven't really looked into the details of this particular site. Obviously, it's very ancient, 8,000 years old. Its layout and all that looks very similar to what you will see from Rakigari, which is also in Haryana. So overall, it's good that it seems that right now there's archaeological work going on there. So overall, great. So we need to excavate and research more and more of these sites. I'm sure there are even bigger and older sites available, but we haven't bothered to look into them. So it's good that this process is now going on slowly, steadily. Over time, we will uncover much more of the truth about our ancient history. Rohit says, in medieval India, the Charan community held influential roles as respected bards, poets, and trusted figures in Rajput courts. Absolutely true. Linked to Shakti worship in Hinglaj Mata in Balochistan. Who are they? The Charans still exist. You still have people in in Western India, I think Rajasthan, Gujarat, etc., whose surname is Charan. And that historically were poets and bards, potentially even chroniclers, and in high positions in the courts of Rajput kings. And were all the Rajput kings linked to Shakti worship in Hinglaj Mata? I'm not sure about that. But the Charans, they had that role as bards and poets and so on in the courts of Rajput kings in the past 1,000 or so years, around 1,000 AD onwards, potentially, maybe even before that. Yeah. So that's the Charans. That's what I can tell you about the Charans. Today, I'm not sure if they still exist in Balochistan. We, of course, have the great shrine, the Shakti Peeth of Hinglaj Mata in Balochistan. And the Hindus of Pakistan still somehow have managed to keep the worship going there, somehow, against all odds. So one hopes that that great sacred Shakti Sthal, will be liberated soon enough, hopefully. Okay. Monish Sabrinath says, Namaste ji, namaste. I am 22. In my life, I have seen bad character people doing good things and good ones doing worse things. Why is life very complicated? Is this my age that I can't find peace in life? I don't know if one ever finds peace in life. I think peace in life is not in life, but after life. Life is complicated. The world is complicated. Of course, it's complicated. You've seen bad character people doing good things. Well, yeah, it happens. Nobody is 100% good or 100% bad. There is good even in people who you regard as bad. And there are bad qualities even in people you regard as good. There is no black and white in life. Everything is shades of gray. It is what it is. It's just the way it is. Life is complicated. Life never stops throwing surprises at you, right? You just got to deal with it. That's the only thing. Enjoy life as much as you can, as much as you can. Do as much good as you can. Try and avoid as much bad and evil as you can, and try and have as much fun as possible. Enjoy as much as possible, and contribute good to the world and to society. That's what I would say you should do. And don't try and pursue peace in life. You probably will never find peace in life. I think peace is after life, not in life. Yeah. All right. All the best. You're very young. Long way to go. May you achieve a lot of good things. All right. All the best. Mr. Reactor Zone says, please talk about Trump alien files in detail. Well, I haven't seen the alien files in detail. Whatever I've seen has been very disappointing. So you had the Epstein files. To cover up the Epstein files, they launched a war on Iran, looks like, possibly, perhaps. And then the war on Iran was a disaster, has been a disaster, a strategic defeat for the Americans. So now they are launching aliens and UFOs. They lost Iran, so they're now talking about UFOs and aliens. I saw some of the videos and images that came out. Nothing of any use. Everything is just hazy and can be interpreted in 75 different ways. There's no actual disclosure. There's no proof of anything. Nothing. Waste of time, actually, in my opinion. Very disappointing. Pradeep Kumar Roy, good night to you and good night to everyone. Okay. Varinder Singh says it was 30.8% AASI in report confirming migration. Oh, migration ho gaya. Migration ho gaya of Aryans. Look, my point is this. We need to have our own proper research done within India. Okay. We have tremendous variety in our genetics. The highest genetic diversity outside of Africa is found in the subcontinent, and yet we are so much, despite that tremendous diversity, we are still very uniform in genetics. Imran Khan and Muttiah Muralidharan, they essentially have the same ancestry, very similar genetics, compared to, let's say, Conor McGregor or who's that? Pat Cummins or whatever. Yeah. So overall, we are the same people. Let's look beyond superficial skin color differences and all that. Overall, we are the same people. So we need to research our ancestry, our genetics in great depth and breadth, a priori, using our own researchers and experts, not listen to what the foreigners have to say about us. All right, that brings me to the end of today's live stream. I think I've dealt with all the questions. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. This was a slightly delayed, 24-hour delayed live stream, but here we are. All's well that ends well. Almost 3 hours in. So let's end this here. Yes, Brett Lee, Alan Border, whoever else, Mitchell Johnson, Mitchell Stark, all of them. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep raising your standards. I'll see you in the next one sooner rather than later. And the next live stream is going to be a topical live stream. We're going to discuss some interesting topics going forward, like we used to do in 2021. Take care. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.